Big 12 today with Ari and James. Monday through Friday, 8 to 11 Eastern Time. Your home for all things Big 12.
And away we go on a Tuesday. Happiness is a choice. Thank you for choosing us. Taman Turner producing and filling in today for James, who's out again until tomorrow. I am Ari Temkin. Great to have you with us today and every day here on your home for the Big 12. Tune in and Big 12 studios. And Taman, let's have some fun today, shall we?
Let's do it. Or do it live.
I figured
We'll
you
do
were
it live.
not one to oppose any sort of fun on this show in any way. So
It's
I appreciate you coming along with me for that ride.
no, I'm glad to be a part of it. It's summer, it's July. By the way, I didn't even get to tell you, over our break, I turned an age. I'm halfway to 70. I turned 35 over our break. So
Really?
I am no longer 34. No longer my
Wow.
Neil Lakers number.
I blame James for
Yeah,
not making us all aware that we missed your birthday. When is your birthday?
July 17th. It was Friday.
July 17th. Well, happy 35th birthday.
Well, thank you. I'm getting older, but I'm halfway to 70, but I feel great.
What'd you do for the festivities?
I didn't do much. I hung out with my wife. She was off with me. We got a massage. That was nice.
Great.
We
Love couples massages. That's
yes,
fantastic.
we went to this place at North Park, Joey Dallas, where we had some nice drinks. Our son was at daycare, so we just kind of took advantage of happy hour until we had to pick him up.
Yeah. Brings new life and meaning to the idea of happy hour for sure.
Very true, very true.
It can be very happy when you're having drinks when your kid's at daycare. That's a joy for
It's like
sure.
we missed you, we love you, but this is our time. This is our day.
It's funny, like my kids have been kind of piecemealing their summer in terms of like some weeks they have camps, other weeks they don't. My oldest was at overnight camp there for a few weeks and the kids were in Florida. And so it's been a bizarre summer because it's like you're trying to wake up and figure out what the kids are going to be doing this week. And then like, so this week, there's a lot of just lounging around the house and playing video games and watching TV, which normally, I feel bad about it, but I don't know. Just this week, I'm totally embracing and leaning into like full on summer stuff here.
It's the not only the dog days of summer in sports, it's the dog days of summer at home. The kids have been, I know your kids went on like summer camp and vacations and stuff, but now they're like, it's the heart of it now. They know school is what, a month away or so, and now they got to really dive in for the last few weeks that they have left.
Yeah, 3 weeks. It's
Oh wow.
yeah, it's crazy how quickly it starts now. It's just because it gets so hot here. It's why summer starts so early compared to, where I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. When I mean, I my birthday is August 23rd. I was never in school on my birthday ever. And
Yeah.
now like these kids, like it's the opposite. They've never not been in school on my birthday.
What growing up in Connecticut, we always got out in June and we went back the week of Labor Day. Like that was normal for me.
Yep.
Like
Yep,
yeah,
exactly. Right.
August, like I hear in Texas and even I have, family in Indiana and they'll say they go back in August. I'm like, no. Like it's funny, I looked at the weather for the next 14 days and it's supposed to be over 100 degrees every day for the next 14 days. And to
Yeah,
think that in the next 14 days, some of the schools will be going back is just insane.
it's insane. 100-degree days are upon us. It is hot and you can feel it. And so the one thing I wanted to know, Taman, as we start the show today is like with college football starting here in the next few weeks, we're like 3 weeks away from the start of college football season, as we are about 3 weeks away from the start of my kids' school. What are you most looking forward to about a college football Saturday? Or what are you most looking forward to about college football season?
Ooh, that's a good one. So I'll start off by saying I've already started it because I bought College Football 27 over the break that we had and I was playing it. But to your point about
What?
Saturday,
So, all right. So, what do you play it on?
I played on PS5.
Nice. Okay, great.
Yes. And I started my road to glory. I'm still a freshman right now, and I play for TCU.
You're a
So,
freshman at TCU in the road to glory.
yes, I
How'd
am.
you settle upon TCU?
So fun fact, I actually got into TCU. I didn't go there, but I figured it was a Big 12 school, and since I went there, I decided to play for them.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, looking forward to Saturday, man. I mean,
And you
like,
had the option to create like an incredible story there. Like, oh yeah, my dad was a tight end back in the day. Like you could have made up a crazy good story there. Just instead of, yeah, I applied and got in, but didn't go.
yeah, I should have gone the story that you're like Googling it and maybe
Yeah.
found some guy last name named Turner and be like, I didn't know this was Taven's great
No way, really.
grandfather.
David's grandfather played at TCU. How about that?
Yeah, right. I just went the boring route that I actually did get into TCU, but I actually never went.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, no. I'm looking forward to. I mean, look, um, football is kind of a ritual in my family. On Saturdays we watch college. On Sundays we watch the NFL. And I'll tell you, like I told my wife when we were dating, I said I watch sports because it relaxes me. And so I look forward to Saturdays beginning at noon for pretty much to the end of the day of me doing absolutely nothing and just sitting in front of the TV. Yes, I'll have like my son, my family, and there'll be times where I take breaks. I get that. You have to do that. But I just look forward to being in a relaxation mode that is kind of like a fun inner peace for me. No distractions, me getting hyped up, me yelling at the TV, me being excited at the TV. That is what I consider fun.
Yeah. So you're a Cowboys fan and you view sports as a relaxing experience.
So the Dallas Cowboys and myself have a very loving yet toxic relationship. I love them. I'm not convinced they love me, but they always keep reeling me back. Listen, I have always compared the Dallas Cowboys to them being Lucy and me being Charlie Brown. I love them and I always fall for the football trying to kick a field goal.
Yeah, I just love the idea that you told your wife, like, oh yeah, I love to watch sports to relax. It's how I unwind and relax. And then you put a Cowboys game on and you're screaming at the top of your lungs because something's happened yet again in the playoffs. I,
So
I can
I'll,
imagine being a Cowboys fan is not a very relaxing experience.
no, it's very rough, but I will tell you this. I will tell you this. This off season they've been very quiet, and
Yeah.
that encourages me.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
encourages me.
Yes.
As for college football, I mean, I one thing I really love about college football, and I hate that I personally didn't get to experience this when I was in college, was I love the fandom. Like I love looking at a stadium filled of 80, 90, 100,000 people, and you have everybody, waving their flags, cheering, the student section going nuts. The mascots are a lot of fun. I know you see me at media days. I'm like playing around with all the mascots because I like when I was in college, like granted at Hofstra, we had basketball, but we weren't very good. Like I never really got to experience that. So it's kind of me like living a life that I never got to live. So I really enjoy seeing that in college. I think it's a lot of fun and I love it personally.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think like what I'm most looking forward to about the college football season is that waking up on a Saturday and recognizing that like you've got a full slate of games. It's like that smell of a fall morning on campus when you wake up and you know you've got a tailgate to attend and you're excited about that and all the festivities that go into going to the game. I was able to go to Kansas State last year. It was a aside from the game itself, an amazing experience to visit the brand new stadium in Lawrence. That's what I'm most looking forward to. I would say that, and I feel like there's really nothing quite like either a Saturday morning or a Friday afternoon grocery trip experience, especially because like I love the outdoor kitchen experience. So I wouldn't call it a kitchen. I've just got like devices to cook outside. I've got the gas grill, I've got the knockoff big green egg, the ceramic oven, and then I've got the Blackstone. And like just going for a Friday afternoon to the grocery store to figure out like what meat you're gonna make. Like, because if you're not gonna tailgate, but you're gonna like have an experience at your house to watch all the games, you gotta have the right foods. And especially if you're gonna have people over. I have a setup in my office where I've got like two TVs, and then I put um a projection screen up so I can watch three games at once. There's a wow factor involved with that.
No, I'm all for it. Look, it's funny. I remember a discussion that you and James had on air a while back about how many TVs do you own in your home?
Yeah.
I have four with a fifth one outside. I remember telling my wife that she did not go for this. but I remember telling my wife that I wanted a television in our bathroom. So during halftime, if I needed to shower, I can still have the game on. So
I mean,
like,
no explanation necessary, David. We all
yeah,
knew exactly what you were.
exactly. And I'm all for it. And you're watching three different games at the same time. Sports fans understand that notion.
Yeah. No,
Like
right.
diehard sports fans completely understand that notion.
It's very ritualistic. You mentioned that earlier. Like it's such a ritual to do that for sports, and and have your weekly rituals. And I feel like that's also sort of what I'm most looking forward to. Also, just like getting back to the rituals of like knowing how your week is structured, understanding like you wake up on a Saturday and you have all these different things to do, and that's what I'm most looking forward to.
I agree with you on the food as well. I'm a big wings guy. Um, so like, usually when I'm watching football, we have wings, we have fries, we have different flavor wings, so we go all in on that. And one thing I also love too that just gives me hype, whether it's on Fox, whether it's on ESPN, CBS, the music. When that music starts, the
Oh
intro
yeah.
music going, it just if you're not hyped, I don't know, something's wrong with your life. Like if that does not hype you up to get ready to watch football, then something is severely wrong with you.
uh, we're asking you, what are you most looking forward to about the college football season? You can chime in via Big 12 Studios on YouTube. Just search Big 12 Conference and live stream us there. Of course, you can watch the show each and every morning on plenty of platforms, including Tubi, Roku, Amazon Prime Video, and YouTube. Just search Big 12 Studios to find all the platforms in which you can get us, big12studios.com. Also, of course, every weekday morning from 7 to 10, the audio version is available via TuneIn and Big 12 Radio exclusively on TuneIn. But Wet Blanket, our friend in the YouTube chat, chimes in. As an Oklahoma State alum, I'm most looking forward to that it's not 2025. Here, Wet Blanket. And probably 2024 at that as well.
Our good friend Stormy Warren would 100% agree with you.
Yeah, no kidding right there. Man, we haven't thought a lot about Stormy throughout this offseason, but he's got to be super excited and optimistic. And he's a friend of Mike Gundy's, so actually kind of curious to get his insight and input into last year plus at Oklahoma State and Stillwater. All right, Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio on a Takeaway Tuesday. SEC Media Days are going on right now. We learned yesterday that LSU has canceled a home and home with Arizona State slated for 2029 and 2030. So this is not the first that we've seen of SEC teams canceling home and home series with Big 12 opponents. Clearly, they're scared of us, Taman. I think that's the obvious explanation here is that the SEC teams are hiding and running away from the Big 12. Because yesterday at SEC Media Days, the biggest talking point was, first of all, just how much the SEC needs to applaud itself for playing 9 conference games, and in fact, I don't know if you can see the audio on the rundown here, Taman, from College Football Kings found video on SEC Network of them discussing the 9-game conference schedule and how much of a benefit it is to the league. Do we have it?
Yes. Let's
All right. Yeah. Let's hear it.
What we won't know, because they won't say it directly, nor should they really, is that the NCAA or the College Football Selection Committee will only use that 9-game schedule as a benefit to this league and never as a hindrance to this league. That's the expectation, but it's only going to be known based upon what they do every single December. And, some would say Alabama got the benefit of the doubt. Others would say maybe over the course of the regular season that wasn't proven.
All right, so there's Dari Noka from ESPN, also known as the SEC's network. Basically like what we don't know if the College Football Selection Committee will only use that 9-game conference schedule as a benefit to the league and never as a hindrance to the league. That's the expectation. That's the expectation. Well, who's setting that expectation? How can you decide that a key data point, even before we've had the data point, what it means or doesn't mean? Like, I mean, if Texas loses in a game to Kentucky as the 9th conference game, then what are we talking about here as a benefit or a hindrance? Also, how are you defining what the 9th game is? Is it just the 9th game on the schedule? Or is it any of the random 9 games you play that you could chalk up to a good loss because you're playing a 9-game conference schedule.
The
Oh,
answer is the latter half of what you just said.
yeah. Yeah. Right. You'll pick and choose and cherry pick which game is going to be that extra game that gives you the benefit of the doubt. It's insane, and it's hilarious for them to even just point out as publicly as they do.
I know.
ESPN's Dari Nyoka, who's just a company man, suggesting that a ninth conference game will only be a positive for the conference and couldn't quite possibly be a negative for a league that at one point dominated college football, but has not even played in the national championship in 3 seasons.
Are you a big believer in body language?
Yes.
If you actually look when he's speaking, I don't even think he feels confident saying what he's saying. I mean, I play when we played that audio. I'm looking at him watch. He was just like, in Alabama, like his face just kind of, I don't know. It said something to me there.
Yeah.
That he
Like
doesn't really feel confident. He has to say what he has to say.
he's a company shill. And, once again, the SEC is trumpeting, is serving as its own trumpeter here to talk about how great it is. It's bending over backwards to continually talk about how great it was. It's funny because I read an article from Pat Forty about SEC Media Days, and the start of it was basically like, the SEC used to convene for media days and talk about how many national championships they've won consecutively. Now they talk about how many fans they have to fill stadiums as the major positive for the SEC. I mean, what's happened here, if I could just quickly distill this, is the SEC has probably lost a few advantages that it used to have. And I would probably assign that closer related to paying for personnel, right? That was probably one of the advantages they had. And depth, because they had the ability to pay under the table and could establish a level of depth, teams could match that. And many of the SEC styles that won, I mean, you look at Alabama, their dominance, it was basically just like elite defense with a really good downhill running game and an effective passing game when they needed to. But for the most part, most of those teams, in Alabama in particular, just needed the elite running game and the elite defense to win national titles. Well, you can't win that way anymore. And so they're trying to figure out the style that they need in order to win, because there's lots of different ways to win now, as opposed to the way the SEC used to win, which was a very simple and basic philosophy and style. But it won. It won.
Yeah, I mean, no lies detected. I mean, look, the SEC is always, I mentioned it yesterday, they're always going to try to control their narrative. I know we're going to get into it later when we talk about Sankey, but some of the times when I hear, pundits talk about the SEC, it feels like huge word salads, but they're not really saying a lot.
Right.
But
Right.
what sucks about it is that they can control the narrative, because that's what's getting the clicks, that's what's getting the watch. But the thing is, eventually, and this is, I know we're gonna again talk about this later, but eventually they're gonna have to, live up to that word. They've done it, but that was in the past. The last time they won a championship was in 2022. So that was 4 years ago, right?
Yeah, Georgia.
Exactly. So it's like, you talk the talk or walk the walk.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say on that.
Yeah. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 radio, and I've never seen a conference that was more confident in proving it on the field, quote unquote, now switched so obviously the other way, especially as it, complains about a 9-game conference schedule. I know that Eli Drinkwitz, the Missouri head coach, basically was attributing the Big Ten's 3 consecutive national championships with 3 different teams to not having to play a power opponent in the non-conference. I mean, it's ludicrous, the bending over backwards and justifications they have to do to sort of justify their standing in college football, when right now, they have no leg to stand on. They were the SEC is 2-7 against Power 5 opponents or Power 4 opponents in the college football playoff era. 2-7 against other Power 4 leagues.
Last time I checked, that's not very good.
Yeah. Texas over Clemson and Texas over Arizona State. Those are your 2 wins.
By the way, one thing you mentioned too was how LSU is getting rid of their game against Arizona State. That when I saw that, the first thing I thought of was, you want to get rid of the game. I know it's in 2030, But I just think it's funny how you were able to get a guy who played at Arizona State last year who is now your quarterback. Just saying. That
Yeah.
was the first thing I thought of.
Yeah, you needed a Big 12 quarterback in order to push you over the top for sure.
Exactly.
All right, more reaction to what's coming out of SEC Media Days, including the latest on the Protect College Sports Act and what it means for the Big 12. That's next. This is the Big 12 Conference. This is a different league. And of course, this is Big 12 Radio, proudly presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Jackson's in trouble now. David Bailey, he is a sack machine. Third and 8.
Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. Thanks for joining us today and every day here on your home for the Big 12. Tune in and Big 12 Studios. And of course, a reminder to check out the brand spanking new Big 12 app featuring Big 12 Radio. You get breaking news, scores, and of course, your best companion, Big 12 Radio. Check out the brand new Big 12 app. Get it today wherever you get your apps. All right, so let's talk about the latest surrounding the Protect College Sports Act, which, man, I can't wait for games to start. If there's one thing we're talking about today, and that is what are we most looking forward to about college football season, I would say more than anything, it's that I don't have to think about or talk about these things like the Protect College Sports Act, because there's nothing that makes sports worse than law, than the courts of law.
All right, you mean to tell me you don't watch sports for the lovely habit of hearing about what needs to happen throughout the U.S. Congress?
Yeah, not for the jurisprudence, not exactly, no. So I think like the SEC they want to have their cake and eat it too. So they don't want to break away, but they want the threat of breaking away. And so they're going to lobby and get Congress to adjust the Protect College Sports Act to their exact specifications, to their exact liking. And if they don't, they're going to basically use it as a reason for why they're going to leave. We even heard, at what point during SEC Media Days and some of the coverage yesterday that it was because of Texas Tech, that they're going to leave college sports behind and join their own SEC thing, whatever it looks like and however it acts, because of Texas Tech. Are you kidding? You're just looking for excuses at this point in time in order to leave and make it at least appear to be justifiable for why you're leaving. It's like Goldilocks, it's too hot, it's too cold. No, this porridge is just right. It's getting to a point now in terms of the Protect College Sports Act that the act looks more like it was written by the SEC than it was written by Congress. Here, I thought this one was unbelievable, and Stuart Mandel tweeted this out, but via a press release from Senator Ted Cruz's office, quote, 72% of Americans support the Protect College Sports Act per a public opinion poll. But also, 64% of those polled had never heard of the Protect College Sports Act and were then given a brief description of it, of which 72% supported the bill. I find that hilarious because, yeah, of course, more than half of those polled had no idea what the Protect College Sports Act is, because most people, I would imagine, don't care about law when it comes to watching college sports. But I think most people also would agree that there needs to be some changes made to college sports in order to keep it moving. And in order, I as a sports fan and friends that I have and whatever else, is you talk to people and like everybody agrees, like, oh man, it sucks. There's lots of things that need to change. And yet everybody agrees at the same time that on Saturday mornings during college football season, they're going to have college football on. So I'm surprised actually that number's not higher in terms of support for the Protect College Sports Act, because I would imagine the majority of people who don't know about it or who are college football fans want some relief to the issues that they see right now within college sports.
Yeah, look, when Connor Wegman is throwing a 60-yard bomb to Amari Thomas, I don't think anyone's caring about what's happening in Congress. But no, to your point, though, the Protect College Sports Act, you're right. Most people want some type of reform. They don't really care how it gets done. They just
right,
want it
or
to be
what
done.
it is. Yep,
Right.
right.
Right. And I'll just say this too, when it comes to the SEC threatening to quote unquote leave or start their own stuff because of Texas Tech. Look, how many do we need to write a list, break down how many times SEC schools have done something bad, or a player at an SEC school has done something bad?
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy because Chris Level said this yesterday. Like, remember when Joey McGuire kind of got killed, saying that Brendan Sorsby didn't commit murder? We get what he was saying. It wasn't that bad, but the point is, there have been things that have been done worse. And the SEC, nope, you're not some special Nobody's looking at you and saying, "Oh, you deserve this." Like you're this on this moral high horse. I mean, look, college sports needs reform. It needs to be better. The fan experience needs to be better. The business side needs to be better. And we've talked about this, for the latter half of the pretty much the entire time that I've been with you and James, is that collective bargaining could resolve pretty much all of this. Maybe not all, but it would take a huge step forward. But I know there's other stuff involved. But any progress, Brett Yormark said it, recently. The progress that we need to make is where we're at. No bill's going to be perfect, but the more progress that we have to have a better system, I think that everybody will benefit.
Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head there in terms of like college football fans want reform. I think most agree reform is necessary. But what that looks like to me is not the Protect College Sports Act, especially as it's continually now being rewritten. I mean, so the latest changes, quote unquote, that are related to the SEC. Number one is money. So, initially there was this rev share cap. The SEC wants a quote unquote retention pool. So basically a separate cap to retain your own players above the actual cap, which would move a total effective cap to anywhere between 40 and 50 million. Okay. And again, this is really for the SEC to protect itself. And I would imagine there's no way this bill gets anywhere close to the president's desk without some revisions to the money side of it. I mean, you have the SEC right now has publicly mentioned that they have a lot of NIL deals being funneled through their multimedia rights partners and sponsors that right now are not being viewed as NIL deals, and they need some language to offset that. The other one that I think is really devastating for the Big 12 would be the movement part. And so, they have done a ton in order to try to limit movement between conferences, rather between members to other conferences. And so the latest iteration they've settled upon is basically like each conference is capped at 19 members. So initially the bill was written to where the SEC and the Big Ten couldn't expand further. The SEC and the Big Ten made a stink, should have included the Big 12 and the ACC, and now they are. And now they've changed it to where there's a 19-member cap. That's number one. Number two, if G6 teams can move up at any point without penalty, but if you're a Power Four going to a Power Four, let's just say an ACC team wanted to join the Big 12, well, according to this law, according to this bill, they would need to be independent for 5 years. What? Like what? It feels like they've adjusted it so much to a point where it's like, well, how does that even make any sense? Oh, you're trying to disincentivize teams to leave a conference. That I understand, but like you protecting college sports by making them wait 5 years as independent feels like that's backwards. It's completely backwards.
Yeah, right.
And those are just the two pieces I think that are most prevalent within this, especially as you look towards the future where, would this save the ACC in the future? And it definitely feels like cards are now having to be played by each conference in terms of conference realignment for the future. So, we had conference realignment. We've had multiple instances of it. It's certainly not going to be going away anytime soon. And I think that's made evident here by the way in which each conference is reacting to the bill and how it deals with movement.
Yeah, I mean waiting 5 years I think is ridiculous. I don't think there's a need for that. I don't know. If the bill is going to be rewritten for the SEC's, advantage, I don't want it. I mean, look, I understand the way that government works is that, the bill as currently written, yes, there will be different amendments made to the bill by different senators or Congress people. I totally get that. And it's not going to be 100% of everything that everybody wants. But if it's going to be completely slanted to where it benefits only one conference, and that this conference right now being the SEC, why what's the point of doing any of this? And if that is the case, kind of to your point, it will get nowhere near Trump's desk.
Well, and can a bill like this survive legal scrutiny? That's what I need to know because
I don't think so.
remember, professional sports leagues, they collectively bargain all of these elements. And so like having a salary cap, but not collectively bargaining what that cap will look like, I just wonder how that works legally speaking. That to me is the one where it's like, I just, again, I'm not a lawyer. Sometimes I like to play on the radio, but ultimately I have no real sense from a legal perspective of, if this bill were to get to the president's desk and be signed, if, it's ripe for, for lawsuits, and especially as it pertains to limiting, the salary pool for players, what that will do. I mean, this bill has justified the amount of talk we've had around it simply based on the fact that it's made it further than any bill previous to it. I'm still not sure this is the right bill to get through. And I'll say it's as if lawmakers, and specifically Ted Cruz and Maria Cantwell, the co-sponsors of this bill, have wanted this thing to get through. So they're trying to talk to every individual involved here, specific to the SEC and the Big Ten, and I'm sure the Big 12 and the ACC to a degree, and other conferences to get their input. But ultimately, this thing has to be shaped by the wants and needs of the SEC and the Big Ten because they're the power brokers. And so they can always threaten they're going to leave regardless of the validity of that and use whatever excuse they want. This ain't it. To me, the Protect College Sports Act just is not it, and especially based on the SEC getting a hold of it. I think it shows the vast disagreements that exist right now in college sports, and that ultimately, even though everybody else is playing the same game, with the exception right now of the SEC and the Big Ten, it appears that we're all going to have to play by the SEC and the Big Ten's rules. And that's always been evident, but it's probably even more evident now than it's ever been, just based on this thing being where it is. This will take time. It's clunky. Again, I don't think the Protect College Sports Act is it, in my opinion. Collectively bargaining is the right approach. And then, coming to agreement on rules based on a collectively bargained agreement make the most sense to me. But that would take time. It would, of course, go through the holding pattern of employment versus non-employment, which this bill does not do. Of course, we know that college sports does not want employment. Maybe there's a discrepancy between employment and whatever else college sports, however else college sports will exist. But to me, that's really the only path towards getting, what's in the best interests of the players, not necessarily in the conference's best interests. So we'll see. Plenty more, I'm sure, to come from the Protect College Sports Act, but hopefully football gets to us quicker, because if it's not voted on the week of July 27th, which is next week in the Senate, then this thing waits until after their recess, and now we're into the college football season at that point in time.
3 weeks away, as you mentioned earlier. 3 weeks away.
It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. Let's check in on all of this with our buddy Matthew Postins from Heartland College Sports. This is Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Last time they played, Johnson throwing the ball, and it's tipped up and intercepted on the deflection. What a pick! Xavier Alford came in from nowhere and picked it clean after the pass was broken up. Second three. Play action. Morton. Knocked away. Looking for the tight end, Conyers.
Big 12 Radio. It's Big 12 Today, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. Taman Turner, our producer, and today for James Westling, I'm Ari Temkin. And now we're joined by our buddy Matthew Postins from Heartland College Sports. Matthew, how are you?
I'm good. First thing, so where's my bumper to introduce Big 12 today? Seems like
Great.
everybody else out there pumping you guys up.
True. It's true. We gotta get you next for sure.
We got you, Matt. We got you.
Let me start with, what are you most looking forward to about college football season?
It's starting and us stop talking about all the other stuff.
Like the stuff we're about to talk about?
Yeah, because it's been one of those off seasons, especially with tech and now with everything in the legislative corner. It's time for us to start playing games. And this is when everybody starts getting itchy, right around the end of July, early August, right before fall practice begins. This is when everybody in our business gets itchy. It's when the players and the coaches get itchy. They just want to start coaching players and start practicing and start getting ready for the season. So for me, aside from that, I'm really looking forward to seeing how this season develops in the Big 12, because I think we all kind of agree that Texas Tech probably has the most talent to win the conference again, but BYU, Houston, they're both lurking. I'm really interested to see how Texas Tech handles being the front runner, having won a championship now, as opposed to being the team trying to chase one that hadn't won a conference championship for nearly 7 decades.
Love that. All right, let's take a step backwards now and get to reality based on the article that you wrote, how conference expansion is back in the conversation with the Protect College Sports Act. So not football related stuff, the same things we're just complaining about, which I agree with. But we were just talking about this in the last segment, how the Protect College Sports Act is now being basically rewritten by the SEC in order to match what they want. How do you think, in which ways is conference expansion back in the forefront because of the Protect College Sports Act?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't pay attention to how legislation is made, this is what happens. They horse trade during this period because the bill's in committee, they're marking it up, everybody's telling them what they want. People in the legislature are telling them, hey, we can do this, maybe not do this. I think for the SEC, just like any other conference, they don't want to be told what to do. So I think what they're saying is, if you want to add schools from the group of 6 to your conference, go for it. We're not going to do that because we're the SEC and we don't need to do that. But we still want a pathway to add membership from the other power leagues if that's what we want to do. I think that's really what this boils down to. They're looking for a compromise and a way to continue to add carriage, because even the SEC at some point, I think, is going to have to add membership. Adding membership, thereby adding games for TV, is really the only way to satisfy the hunger that networks like ESPN and Fox have for more games. So at some point, even the SEC is going to have to do it. So they want to have a pathway to do it. So for them, seeing legislation that says they can't do it under any circumstances doesn't work for them. They seem to be willing to work within narrow circumstances. Ross Dellinger at Yahoo Sports didn't really report what those circumstances were, because I don't think anybody knows what those circumstances are yet. So this is how things get done in this situation. They horse trade with one another, and there aren't very many situations that are that good for the Big 12, because if the SEC does get what they want, even a limited pathway to expand, at some point the SEC will, and at some point that will impact the Big 12.
Yeah, I was going to ask you your thoughts on the Protect College Sports Act in relation to the Big 12. What do you think it looked like for the Big 12 before it was marked up by the SEC? What do you think it looks like now?
I think it was probably better for the Big 12 before it got marked up, because you had the hard line on conference expansion. Even though that did kind of hurt the Big 12 to some degree because it couldn't expand any further, at least nobody could come and get their membership. Now, yeah, they could go add, schools in the American Conference or whatever other group of 6 conferences out there based on how the legislation reads now. But that wouldn't help them in the case of the SEC or the Big Ten coming to get one or two more of their members down the line. And it's not a hard decision to make if you're a Big 12 school between the Big 12 and the SEC. It's unfortunate to say, but there's more money there. There's more security there. And there's more opportunity from an NIL revenue generation perspective there. And that's the thing that Yormark's going to have to be really careful about as they go through this over the next few weeks, because it's a really limited window. Senate goes in recess early August, and they're gone for a month. And then everybody's focused on really two things the rest of the year: getting reelected and getting a continuing resolution for budgeting in September. So if they don't get anything done within the next 3 weeks, then this is dead for a while. The good news is status quo. Bad news is status quo. You're still kind of sitting out there, not necessarily protected from the other leagues. And that goes for the ACC too.
Matt, do you think this thing gets passed?
No, I don't. I think there isn't enough runway.
Yeah.
There are too many things that the SEC and the Big Ten still want in the bill. There's too much discussion going on right now. And even though sports is very much a bipartisan thing, legislatively speaking, there's not a lot of there's not a lot of partisanship there, aside from the team you're a fan of. I just don't think there's enough time to get it done, because you have to. What happens after? Let's just say the Senate passes it, then it has to go to the House, then it has to go get signed by the president. If the president doesn't actually like the bill, he doesn't have to sign it, but it becomes law after 10 days, even if he doesn't sign it or veto it. I just don't think there's enough time for that to happen.
Yeah. No, great point. I agree. Especially, I mean, for Cruz to hope that it would be voted on before the recess.
Yeah.
Like, they're just trying to get this thing through as quickly as they possibly can. But I agree. I see no path. And look, I mean, baby steps, right? I mean, it's the first time a bill has gotten past committee. So
That's true.
I mean, maybe the next bill will at least get out of one branch, but they're getting closer because the legislation is evolving. And I think that's the key here is, I'm sure there are people and stakeholders that are frustrated, but like, this is all part of the process that's going to have to play out over the course of many, many years at this point.
Yeah, and this is not apples to apples, but the NCAA passed the 5-for-5 legislation in June. They've been talking about that for 2 years. So legislation like college playoff expansion moves glacially in this world. So it takes time. But you're right. This bill, even if this bill doesn't get passed, they can pick it up in the next Congress and hopefully get it further down the field, so to speak, and maybe even get it passed.
What do you make of what you've heard so far out of the SEC and SEC media days?
A lot of grousing about a 9-game conference schedule. Goodness, it's just crazy. They have to play each other one more time a year. Gosh, that's so sad.
Who'd have
just
thought
like
they split the atom for how they're
it's like
discussing it?
no other conference does that. Gosh, really? I mean, I was telling Taman during the break, there's some Division II and Division III conferences that all they do is play each other. Like their entire 10 or 11 game schedule is all conference games. So it's not like there are other conferences that don't live this reality. The Big 12 obviously has lived this reality for more than a decade. They've played a 9-game schedule since they went to 10 teams. But, I think globally, it's a good thing because we need every conference to play the same amount of conference games. It helps with resume comparison when it comes to the playoff. But it's just funny to watch these coaches, kind of flail all over themselves. Eli Drinkwitz, in particular, from Missouri yesterday, he's become kind of their Mike Gundy. Like he's become their guy that just gives you quote after quote after quote. Except sometimes with Eli, they don't always make sense.
I would say most times they don't. Yeah.
With Mike, they usually make sense. He usually got to a point, but he was the one grousing yesterday about the 9-team conference schedule. He was also the one grousing about how a committee shouldn't be deciding the playoff. I'm like, dude, you won 8 games last year. You weren't making the playoff either way. It's just, SEC Media Days is always fun because they do seem to be living in their own little bubble to a certain degree. And that's where I think a lot of these comments sometimes come from, is just they live in their own reality where they're here and everybody else is here. And you don't get to talk to us that way.
Right. That's exactly right. I mean, and it's bizarre from the standpoint of like they're 2-7 in the college football playoff against Power 4 opponents. I mean, they haven't played for the title in multiple years. I mean, they're only as good as they say they are at this point in time.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. We've seen a redistribution of wealth, so to speak, across college football. And that redistribution of wealth has led to a redistribution of talent. I read this last week. So Ohio State, I think in the course of a couple of decades had only had like 2 recruits in the state of Alabama. In the last 3 years, they've pulled 7 or 8
Wow.
from the state of Alabama. And you think about that for a minute. I mean, Alabama's been great for 15 years. So yeah, it's really hard to pry a kid out of the state of Alabama unless maybe you're Auburn. To think about the fact that Ohio State's been able to go into Alabama and pull several guys out of Alabama the past few years when they haven't been able to do that before, that tells you everything about the shifting landscape of the game. It isn't just the fact that the Big Ten's winning championships. It isn't just the fact that Indiana changed everything last year by winning a national championship. It's how NIL and how modern recruiting is really making it harder for schools to keep kids in state. I mean, if Alabama can't do it, then,
Right.
frankly, all bets are off.
Yeah, great point. Matthew Postins, Heartland College Sports. Always appreciate your time and insight, man. Be well. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Ari. Thanks, Tim. Appreciate it.
Always fun to visit
Thanks,
with
Matt.
our buddy
Bye.
Matthew Postins from Heartland College Sports. Make sure to check out all the great work that Pete Mundo and Matthew Postins and the great team do at Heartland College Sports. They do a great job as an independent publication covering the Big 12. And yeah, I mean, a lot as we observe what's happening right now with SEC Media Days, a lot to discuss from a Big 12 perspective. And I think it starts with this notion that the SEC is just so big and bad and better than everybody else only because they say so, which just continues to be perpetuated seemingly every single year. And it's been worse and worse last few years as the Big 12, or rather as the SEC has crumbled to a much worse version of itself. And I think that's partly because like the SEC had a dominant force in Alabama and then had potential foils for that dominant force, where one year it was Georgia, one year it was LSU, some years it's multiples. But for the most part, like that was it. And now you've got just a group of teams where you're like, well, who's going to be the best? Because there's some that should be in this conversation. But for the most part, there's no Alabama like there used to be. Bama is the best litmus test for the drop of the SEC. They were a dominant force that you could count on every year to be that dominant force. And now we're kind of like in a wait and see mode with them.
Yeah, now they're good, but they're not great.
Yeah. Well, and they might be great, but we don't know. And all they do is tell us about how great they are. Despite not being great.
I mean, they tell us, but they have to prove it on the field. If we compare them now compared to what they were, they're not great anymore.
Yeah. Also, just as it pertains to the Protect College Sports Act, it appears that the Big Ten and the SEC, quote, do not support the bill. We still do not support the bill in its current form, but continue to engage with the bill's sponsors and other legislative partners in an effort to make improvements. Yeah, I think you could pretty confidently say that this bill is not going to pass. It's Big 12 today, Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo. Valid or void is next. It's Big 12 today.
Player.
In motion. And a quick slant again that's caught, and look out. Kobe Prentice, his second catch of the early hours of this one in the evening. Yards. The one miscue. Oh, no miscue there. Touchdown, Kobe Prentice. His 6th of the year. Only 17 catches. All he does is catch touchdown.
Offset right as Robertson begins his drive, steps up in the pocket. He pushes vertical. That's complete. Already inside the 30 of Houston.
Sawyer did a great job navigating that pocket, but watch Prentice on the back end. The route on the outside buys up one of the. We're aided. A bounce from Oklahoma State. Wide open. Running free. Kobe Prentice. Give the man 6.
Just speed. We talk about speed. Nothing to it. Just one right pass. Dylan Smith, the safety, who's just squatting on it. And something this offense lacks as we go versus Arizona State.
Pass again, this time.
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo. So great to have you with us today and every day here on your home for the Big 12. Tune in Big 12 Studios. I am Ari Temkin on social at Ari Sports. Taman Turner is producing and filling in today for James Westling, who will be back tomorrow with us. The full band back together. Hopefully we'll be back in studio soon as well. Can't wait. It's time now for a little Valid or Void. Taman?
All right. Valid or void time. I'm ready for it. We haven't done it in a while because we've been off, but we've been talking about this all day.
I've been valid or voiding all over my house. We've been done.
You go over there, see something in the cabinet, valid or void. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. I'm just firing away at my kids. Just wake them up in the morning. Valid or void? Who will eat this today?
Yeah. Right. All right. Well, we've been talking about this yesterday and today. So
valid or void? You know where the remote is.
Valid or void? Who's going to win? The Rangers or the White Sox will beat the Rangers. Valid or void?
Valid.
It was valid. 10-3.
Yeah. Let's hope
all right.
It's valid.
All right. Valid or void? We've been talking about this yesterday and today. We've been talking about the Protect College Sports Act. We've been talking about SEC Media Day. So my first topic is the SEC is going to break away at some point. Valid or void?
Yeah, I'm going to avoid this. I don't see it. I don't see it as a viable path. Beyond like the only positive being, hey, we get to call the shots. Like they already have that. And so why would you move to a situation where you have all the power to another situation where you have all the power, but less power in a sense, right? Because if you move and break away, you're now governing yourselves as opposed to now where they basically govern all of college sports. They also, Sankey has also said publicly that like breaking away is not the right direction. It would not be the right decision. And these are issues that need to be solved collaboratively. And so I just think he's going to continually use it as leverage to say like, well, we can break away. And I think that's why Jamie Pollard made the comments that he made. Stop threatening it and just move, just do it. Either poop or get off the pot. So I'll say void. There's just no way they're going to break away.
I 100% agree. I am voiding this like to high heavens because if you're going to break away, Jamie Pollard's point, just do it. But they're not going to do it. I think they're using it as leverage. I think if they were to do it, there would be lawsuits and negative backlash that they wouldn't see coming. There's always consequences to your actions when you do something unconventional. And similarly, I know, again, it's not the same thing, but I used the same argument when we talked about Texas Tech and Sorsby. There were unintended consequences that Tech had to kind of approach. I think if the SEC were to do this, there would be lawsuits, perhaps from attorney generals. There would be negative backlash from the other conferences. This just would not be good for them. It would take away some of the controlling language of narrative that they already have right now. And what would be the point of it? I'm boarding it.
Yeah, and I will say though, long term, I think the idea that this is heading towards a super league, quote unquote, is like I would buy that more than I would buy them breaking away. They would need the Big Ten. The SEC won't admit this, but they need the Big Ten in order to break away. And at this point, it's only the Big Ten, rather the SEC threatening.
And that's fair. I think that's a fair, like, kind of compromise and to agree. Yeah, if the SEC is going to quote unquote break away, then it's a super league with the Big Ten. 100% agree.
Yeah.
All right, next one, and we've kind of talked about this, we've hinted at it, but it'd be interesting to see what some of our listeners on TuneIn think and some of our viewers on who are watching on Big 12 Studios. Valid or void, the Protect College Sports Act will pass the U.S. Senate. Valid or void?
You can go first on this one.
Yeah, so I originally, when I put this on the rundown, I originally said valid because I was maybe putting too much faith in politicians when they're saying we have over 60 vote support, it's bipartisan, it's out of committee. But now with it being 6 days away and changes have been made, I'm going to actually void this. I don't think this will pass the United States Senate, at least right now. I think eventually, perhaps in the next Congress, I think you have a lot higher of a availability. But I mean, now we are entering election time. If it does pass the U.S. Senate, let's play the hypothetical sense and say that it does. It won't pass the House, but I'm voiding that it passes the United States Senate.
Yeah, and the question here is valid or void. It'll pass the Senate, which they'd need 60 votes in order to do it. And, they claim they have the vote. So if they did, then set the vote.
Right.
I've
Right.
heard, oh, we've got the 60 votes. Well, then why haven't you set the vote? Oh, because you don't.
Right. Right.
I think you also are going to have opposition from senators that view this as not being the best for the athletes themselves. In fact, I know there's one senator, Chris Murphy, who's been quoted basically as opposing the bill because it sells players short. So I think the calendar aspect of this, the fact that that there's a recess if they don't get this thing voted on in the next few weeks, is all working against it. I would say void. There's no way that this thing passes the Senate.
All right, so we are on void session today. Okay, the next one, and God, I know you love this topic, Ari. I mean, granted, it's only been the topic of everything
Gosh,
this
what
entire offseason.
topic du jour is this then?
Brendan Sorsby. Oh man, valid or void? The Brendan Sorsby saga will not hang over the Big 12 this season.
I'm going to validate this, meaning it will not hang over the Big 12 this season. And I'm just going to say a quick thank you to Will Hammond for making that so. Congratulations, Will Hammond. You're going to take over at Texas Tech. You're going to lead them to lots of wins into the college football playoff. And in doing so, everybody will forget that there was ever a quarterback that they were going to start the season with in Brendan Sorsby. So not only will it not hang over the Big 12 this season, we'll forget about it. We're going to get to the end of the season. Texas Tech's going to be playing for the Big 12 championship with Will Hammond, and we're going to be like, oh, yeah, did they have another guy that was supposed to start the season at quarterback for them? Man, that was a long time ago. Who was that guy? Whatever happened to him?
So I am going to validate it, but I am going to put a but or a little asterisk to it. For everything you just said, I 100% agree. I think Texas Tech will be fine. Will Hammond will lead the team. They will be in the Big 12 championship game. I have no doubt about that. Here is my only asterisk but. If Texas Tech makes the college football playoff again and they have a dud like they did last year against Oregon, everybody at Tech is going to say, well, if Sorsby had been able to play, this wouldn't have been an issue. And that's when it'll kind of come crawling back. But let's hope that doesn't happen. So yeah, okay, I'm going to validate it. I believe it will not be. And plus, I said throughout the season, so I'm talking regular season, so I don't think it'll be a problem.
So the caveat, again, you're saying is if they lay an egg in the playoff, everybody will say, well, if they had Sorsby, not Hammond, this thing would have never happened.
I think there will be a lot of Tech-based media that will do that. I think there will be an aspect of some Tech fans, because Chris Level said it yesterday, there were some Tech fans who believe that Sorsby shouldn't have played and he did wrong. But I think that there will be a loud enough aspect, particularly on the X/Twitter sphere, who will say, well, Sorsby should have played. We wouldn't have had this issue.
Yeah. I think if things go south for Tech right away, then Sorsby comes up. I don't think that'll be the case. If they have a good year like they did last year, but then lay an egg in the playoff, I think it'll at that point be so far in the rearview mirror that it'll almost be forgotten.
We've been talking about September 18th being such a big game, that Friday game against Houston. If Houston wins that game and Tech's offense just lays an egg, doesn't look good, I'm not going to like what we're going to talk about that Monday on the 21st.
Yeah, that will be a Sorsby for sure discussion.
Yeah.
100%
Yeah.
on that.
All right, next one. I saw an article about the toughest Big 12 stadiums, and Lavelle Edwards Stadium was ranked number 1. So, valid or void, Lavelle Edwards Stadium is the toughest stadium in the Big 12.
So, how are we defining tough?
Good question. I would say an atmosphere where you just know it is going to be a ruckus crowd no matter what the score is, and you are, I don't know, I don't want to say the word intimidated by the crowd, but you know that the crowd is a factor.
I mean, I'm gonna say void, and it's not a knock on Lavelle Edwards Stadium. It's more of a, I feel like if we go to other conferences, it would be really difficult to say which is the toughest venue to play in. And I think in many ways, like look at the SEC, it's like there's just unique venues and cool places. Like Knoxville is very unique. You've got a stadium on the lake, and so boats pull up to it, and you can tailgate on a boat, and and then Tuscaloosa is different, and the Grove in Oxford, Mississippi is totally different. So I feel like the Big 12 is very much in line with that. I mean, you could argue Kansas State has one of the best environments in college football in the Big 12. I don't even see them mentioned in any capacity. I certainly think BYU is in the conversation, and based upon the week in the game, like BYU Notre Dame will be one of the best environments we're going to see all season
Can't wait for that.
in college football. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm going to say void, and it's not a knock at all on BYU or on Rice Eccles at Utah or on the Galaxy in Lubbock. I just think there's a lot of really interesting, unique venues that based on context can become really difficult places to play. Like we've seen Ames be a really tough place to play. So, I mean, over the years, we've seen all different venues be a part of this conversation for all different reasons. And I think there's like the ritualistic, there's the historical perspective, there's, again, like the uniqueness of it, right? All of these play into all of these different venues.
You know what? I'm going to validate this. Look, I know Texas Tech is tough, the Galaxy, Utah's tough. You mentioned
Morgantown's tough.
yeah, I mean, I'm picky, and this might be a little recency bias because BYU is such a good team. But let's be honest. Look, I know BYU when they played Tech last year at what was now formerly the it's the Galaxy now, but it used to be Jones
Jones
Stadium.
AT&T, yeah.
Yeah, Jones AT&T. BYU's really good, and if I'm any team, you do not want to play them in Provo. I mean, I know you can make that argument really about any team. You don't want to play Tech at the Galaxy. But I think that with BYU, we know they're tough, even if they're, not a projected 2 seed in the Big 12, right? But the fact that they are good and it's a beautiful environment, but it's a ruckus environment. It's a crowd that's going to support BYU. They're crazy for basketball, better yet, football. So I don't know. I think BYU, Lavelle Edwards, I'm going to validate. I think I don't want to play them there, and I think Notre Dame is going to lose that game, and I don't think it's going to be particularly close.
Wow.
And what I mean by close is I think BYU will win by 10 or more. I know 10 might sound close, but if they win by 10, it'll be a game where BYU kind of dominated. Maybe Notre Dame made a quick run at the end to kind of get it in. But I think BYU is going to win that game.
Yeah. All right. What's next?
All right. So we talked yesterday a lot. We heard from Rich Rod from Big 12, Monster Energy Big 12 Football Media Days. And he was talking about how his offensive line he was very confident about it, had a lot of good things to say about it. So valid or void, West Virginia will have a top 5 O-line in the Big 12 this season. And it made me think about it because I know when we were doing the consensus, you weren't necessarily sold on it. So I can't wait to hear your thoughts on that.
No, I'll validate this. I'm buying what they're selling in Morgantown. And look, I mean, I think there's a credibility factor with Rich Rod to where, do you always believe coaches at face? No, but I believe in his conviction with Rick Trickett. He brings him back. We've documented that. Nick Cray is a guy that we talked to at Media Days. He started all 12 games at tackle, and Rich Rod thinks he can be an all Big 12 guard, playing inside, being kicked inside. They've got the freshman tackle and Kevin Brown, who's coming in, who he said he's never seen a freshman ready to play at that level that well. So yeah, I'm buying it. I 100% buy that this will be a really good and improved offensive line. And again, like we played some of the clips yesterday. We're gonna talk about Utah and Houston today later on in the show as we recap what we heard from coaches and players at Big 12 Media Days. And even when Rich Rod was asked about other positions and other groups and other even sides of the ball, he would draw it back to the O-line. So it's obvious that he believes very highly in this offensive line.
Yeah, I'm validating it too. I I think their line's gonna be better. I know we talked about it during the consensus, and I think that Rich Rod wants to establish a run game, and Cam Carr running behind that new and improved offensive line. I'm buying it. I think that they're trying to set an identity by having a strong line, having a good running game. Quarterback improvement. You have Michael Hawkins and even Scotty Fox there, but I just think that when they're if that's their talking point, that's what they're going to sell, and they sold that at media days. That means that Rich Rod believes it. I think he is credible, and I think that's going to be kind of the foundation of their identity this season.
It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. This is Valid or Void. Taman Turner in today, producing and filling in for James Wesley. I'm Ari Temkin. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. Let's take a look at the Big 12 defensive lines. That's next. It's Big 12 today.
Play fake. Sorsby taking a shot. Touchdown, Cincinnati. Myrie connecting for a touchdown. Sorsby hits Cyrus Allen for the second time today.
And again, his confidence is growing.
Hart always said to commit to a school, not a coach. That's why he has persevered in Cincinnati. Now he'll launch for the end zone. Perfectly thrown ball. Touchdown, Cyrus Allen.
Jimmy's got it. Laser for a touchdown. Cyrus Allen. Cincinnati back on the high side.
Great start at 5-1, equaling the win total from last season. Out of empty on first down. Sorsby to Allen across the middle. Broken tackle. Touchdown. Cincinnati strikes first.
Done, thank you. We start the second with an option pitch. Around the edge, Cyrus Allen is in. Touchdown, Cincinnati. Joe Warner back onto the field, top of your screen. Pressure comes. Cyrus Allen out of the backfield with his third touchdown. This offense has been unstoppable. Sorsby has 55 of the 133 rushing yards. Fires to the end zone. It's time to Allen.
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. We are 20 minutes away from visiting with our friend Max Olson, who does a fantastic job in covering college football in the transfer portal for ESPN. He joins us coming up at around 8:40 Central. Also, if you have not yet checked out our Power Hours, I highly encourage you to today. If Big 12 today on TuneIn from 7 to 10 a.m. is not enough, well, good. The show replays. And then after the replay, you got our Power Hour interviews, including Media Day interviews with Eric Morris, Brett Yormark, DJ Lagway, and Kylan Reed. That's all on the Power Hour for today. That's followed at 2 o'clock Central by Alonzo Barnett, Jaden Bellamy, Juju Lewis, Danny Scudero, Kyson Brown, and Lyric Rawls. And then at 3 o'clock, it's Bryce Pollock, Terrence Carter, Drew Mestamaker, Caleb Hawkins, Bear Mockmeyer, Isaiah Glasker. So quite the Power Hours that we have for you today, starting at 1 o'clock, going all the way till 4 o'clock tonight, right here on your home for the Big 12 TuneIn and Big 12 Studios. You know, I think there's, and this is probably pretty obvious, but there's maybe no more indicator of success in football than the health and success of your defensive line. I think, like last year as an example here, Oregon beat Texas Tech, just to simplistically boil it down to as simple as I possibly can, to defensive line play. Oregon's defensive line was consistently better than Texas Tech's. And Texas Tech's defensive line was very good in that game, just not enough. Or maybe had more to do with the quarterback, but I digress. It was the absolute the absolute dominance of that defensive line that won them the game. And what they did to instill fear in Barrett Morton at the quarterback position. And I look at the defensive line just in its totality across the Big 12. And I think the talent level and overall production has improved dramatically over the last few years. Steven Johnson, our buddy from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, released his defensive line rankings for Big 12 teams. And look, you look at the top five, I would argue that those are like legitimate. All five of them are probably legit top 25 defensive lines in college football, which says a lot because, you know, as we've talked a ton today about the SEC, like historically, that's been a dominant position group for the SEC. And they've been able to sort of hoard all of the players over the years, which allowed them to rebuild and be consistently good along the defensive line. I think the SEC is probably still pretty good there, as the draft is a good indication of that. But, I mean, I look at this. Steven Johnson has Texas Tech ranked number 1 defensive line in the Big 12. BYU number 2. No surprises there. I could certainly see an argument for BYU to be 1 and Texas Tech to be 2, but it's like most things, you know, however you want to argue it is fine by me. Arizona State with CJ Fight and Clayton Smith are 3rd. TCU's defensive line, who might be the best of all of them, is 4th. And then Houston with what they have returning, what they bring in. I mean, we'll hear what Willie Fritz had to say to us at Big 12 Media Days coming up at 9 o'clock at the top of the hour, because we'll replay some of the best clips from Big 12 Media Days, and we're focused on Utah and Houston today. Like, Willie Fritz is extremely optimistic about what they have on their defensive line. And it's easy to buy into it because they've had so many good players along their defensive line. They seem to be good there every year.
Yeah, I mean, our buddy Lee J. Duzable would love this just because, you know, him being a defensive guy in the trenches. But yeah, I mean, look, I like what you said right off the bat. You know, last year when Tech played Oregon, you know, defensive line play was massive. And it was massive on both sides because Texas Tech's defensive line did not play bad. They played well, but there was other issues in that game, of course, as you mentioned. But I think for the Big 12 to really make its mark, you know, Joey McGuire talked about, you know, how the importance of the defensive side maybe not being the sexy side, but that's the side he wants. He wants to have a good defensive line. He last year, you know, Texas Tech's defense was incredible, but for your defense to be incredible, it starts with your line. And you know, all of these teams mentioned here have pretty strong defensive line. They're going to be a problem for everybody, not only in this conference, but I think in out of conference play as well, and potentially in the college football playoff.
Do you agree with the way that they have them ranked, that Steven ranked these? Do you think Texas Tech 1, BYU 2, Arizona State 3, TCU 4, Houston 5?
I think I would Texas Tech and BYU, yes. I think I'd have TCU at 3 over Arizona State. And Arizona, that would be my only thing. I would flip TCU and Arizona State.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, just off the top of my head, not having the best knowledge of the rest of these conferences, but it just feels like for Houston to be 5th on this list, which is, you could argue whatnot, but let's just say they're 5th at worst. I mean, with a pretty consistently good defensive line, it feels like just the overall defensive lines have improved pretty dramatically in the Big 12. And I think that's the big story here is, we talk all the time about having success in the playoff for the Big 12 and what it looks like and how it translates. And for me, it's health of defensive line is a pretty good indication of the health of the team overall. And, we've seen an era of Big 12 football where it was a very pass-happy league, and we saw inflated, video game type numbers coming out of Big 12 programs from a passing game perspective, but then they'd get to big high-profile games, and they'd be outmanned and outmatched because the passing game didn't mean anything because they couldn't stop their opposing defensive line. It's funny as much as the game evolves and changes, like offensive line and defensive line play still drive the bus and are still the biggest and best and most important indicators of success. And I look at the overall profile of the Big 12 being raised based on just the success of that position, or at least the growth of that position.
Look, I mean, I hate to say this, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. Last year when Tech played Oregon, even though it was not the game that we wanted for Tech, the reason why Tech was still in the game, despite it being an ugly game, was because of the defensive line. It's because they were able to get to Oregon up front. And a defensive line, I don't care what your offense does, it can keep you in the game. Even if you find a way to win ugly, it can keep you in the game. Whereas compared to what you mentioned before, when when the Big 12 would have these inflated offensive video game type offensive numbers, it was fun and beautiful to watch. We love it as fans, but it's not necessarily a winning formula. It's one of the reasons why we have questions about Oklahoma State, for example, this year. We know that their offense will be explosive, but they don't have the strongest defensive line. So if their offense has a game where, let's say, they're not on their game, what happens? Can they actually stay in the game if their defensive line is not there? Whereas we know, we look at these 5 teams, Texas Tech, BYU, Arizona State, TCU, and Houston, we know if they have a bad offensive performance, their defense led by their line can keep them in the game. So if they have an opportunity to that can put them in a position to win, they're still in it.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, I think your point about the Orange Bowl, is extremely important to state here. That basically the only reason why the Texas Tech was even in the game was because of their defensive line. And, again, how do I judge the overall health of defensive lines in the Big 12? Well, because the NFL draft is a pretty good indication of where the Big 12 is, both from an offensive and a defensive line perspective. And I think there's a shot that the Big 12 will have multiple first and second round picks along the defensive line after this season. So it just continues to grow. And I think it's multifaceted. I think we used to have a situation in which the SEC would just be able to hoard all of the talent up front on both sides of the ball. And we saw that. Like, the drafts are a good indication of that in terms of just offensive linemen, defensive linemen from SEC programs getting drafted. And it's still overwhelming, but it also appears like there's almost more, it's more equal across the board in terms of just overall talent. And look, I mean, we could argue, is this the right list? Are these the right spots for these teams? I mean, going down, he's got Stephen Johnson from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram has Arizona 6, West Virginia 7, UCF 8, K-State 9. I think that could be a little bit low. I think K-State could probably be higher. Oklahoma State 10. He's got Kansas 11. I think that could be that is Kansas's strength, in my opinion, their defensive line. They probably should be top 6, top 7. Colorado at 12, Baylor at 13, Utah at 14 is shocking to me. And maybe this is on paper, more so than projecting out. But I just think there's a credibility factor with Utah that suggests that 14 there's just no chance. Like their defensive line is going to be better than 14 because we talked with Morgan Skelly about this, and we'll hear what he had to say coming up as we recap what we heard from him. But like they know what to look for. They know the characteristics to look for. They know how to develop. They know the right drills in order to develop those guys. For me, Utah at 14 is way too low on this list.
100% agree. I wouldn't have Utah on that list either. I think I really like your point about the dramatic improvement of the defensive line, in this conference. Can you imagine? I mean, look at David Bailey was the number 2 pick just in the NFL draft just a couple months ago. Can you imagine, not to knock the conference or anything, but can you imagine like that the identity just a few years ago was score 50, 60 points. We saw that with Patrick Mahomes. Just to flip that on the other side and see a Texas Tech defense, play as phenomenal as it did last season, and we expect to be good this season. That I don't know if that was fathomable just to think about it that way, the identity change of this conference led by the defensive line in such a short period of time.
Yeah, we'll see if the rest of the country, national media can catch up to that, because it does feel like in some ways that still paints the Big 12 in an inaccurate way. But I mean, and maybe it's still, even though it's grown, still isn't on the same level as some of the other conferences. But I would just say overall, the profile has been raised significantly. And I think like if you were to boil down the strengths of both BYU and Texas Tech, and they have some strengths, it would be their defensive lines.
I mean, to me, we're in the midst of an identity shift for the conference. I mean, you had David Bailey, Malachi Lawrence, guys who can play on this line who are top NFL guys who play in this conference. I just think that throughout the 2010s, the 2000s, I'd have to sit down and list everything, but I when I would think of the Big 12, Texas, Oklahoma, Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, I just think explosive offenses where I just think that tide is turning.
It's Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. That's Taman Turner, our producer, in Today for James. I'm Ari Temkin. Max Olson from ESPN joins us next. He's got a piece out that shows that both Devin Dampier and Avery Johnson will have interesting decisions to make in December. We'll discuss that with him next. It's Big 12 Today.
Up to the field side here, and he's home again. Changing up the look. The result is the same for David Bailey.
56% on the year on conversions. Jackson's in trouble and down. David Bailey, he is a sack machine.
More on 3rd and 8. Pressure and they get to him. He is sacked by the best in the biz, David Bailey. 14 and a half sacks now on the season.
On this possession, what a huge smack in the backfield again. It's David Bailey walloping Jamarian Burnett.
Work on an empty here. 3rd down and 9. Kansas State. Oh, goodness. Look out. David Bailey, the sack leader in the nation, gets home again.
Cam Pickett is much healthier now and running better. You see it there.
Oh, good night. David Bailey in a heartbeat. He graduated from Stanford in under 4 years, and he runs like this.
Big 12 Radio, Big 12 Today, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. Please be joined now by Max Olson from ESPN. Does a fantastic job at covering the sport and the transfer portal. What's up, Max? How are you?
Hey, good morning. Good to be with you guys.
Yeah, appreciate your time as always. A lot to discuss with you, but let's start with your piece on the 5 years to play five. Devin Dampier and Avery Johnson will have interesting decisions to make in December now that NCAA eligibility reform gives them a fifth year. This is from a piece you wrote. What have you heard from those quarterbacks? And, it will obviously impact lots of quarterbacks across the conference, but those two are the big name ones, certainly in the Big 12.
Yeah, it's a rule change that certainly coaches have been looking forward to and pushing for a few years now. I think we're in a time here in college athletics where obviously you're just seeing so much manipulation when it comes to waivers, when it comes to red shirts and 4-game red shirts. And I think that it's good for the NCAA to be getting out of the business of this stuff. But for some of these guys that are fourth-year players who haven't redshirted yet, it's going to create an opportunity to come back next year. And so, Avery Johnson, Devin Dampier are the big names on that. Jalen Rayner at Iowa State, another guy that'll have that opportunity. Talking to those guys at media days, them and their coaches are sort of like, yeah, we'll get through the season. We'll talk about it in December, kind of see what we're thinking. Devin Dampier told me his hope is that he's going to the NFL next year, that he has a big year and is ready to move on to the league. I would imagine that's probably how Avery Johnson feels as well. But, good opportunities for those programs. They can get it back for another year. And I think nowadays with how NIL is, guys, like, you're going to see some of these QBs come back because there's just going to be way better money next year in college than there is, fighting for a roster spot somewhere. It will create an interesting situation at Utah, though, because, I think Bird Ficklen's probably one of the highest paid backup QBs in the country. They're ready for him to be the guy next year. And so, I think for Devin Dampier, fascinating decision to make at the end of the year. They're hoping that they have a great year and the league wants them. But, for a few of these guys, they got some choices here now.
Is Noah Fifita in that conversation too?
No, I believe he's year 6 now.
Oh, right.
Right.
Sure. Yes.
Or year 5 now. Yeah. He does not have the option to come back next year. I asked Brent Brennan that. I miscounted too and was sort of like, you guys going to be running a Heisman campaign for Noah Fifita next year? He said, no, this is the last year for Noah Fifita. But yeah, it's he's one that Arizona's gonna have to figure out who's next there. Kind of like a Jalen Daniels. Feel like he's been there forever,
Right. And I mean, I think with the extra COVID year, it's like has made figuring out what years these guys are so difficult.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost like we're never going to escape it. Like COVID was 6 years ago, and it's still like, yeah, there's still a COVID year left for some reason.
Yeah, and now we've got all these lawyers suing to try and get the basketball players an extra year now too. It never stops, guys.
It never stops. Tammy, go ahead.
Yeah. So, Max, a question for you involving Devin Dampier. How do you believe Kevin McGivern being the new offensive coordinator, what effect that will have on him on his decision?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think certainly that relationship with Coach Beck coming from New Mexico was a big deal for Devin Dampier, and obviously it was a big deal for Morgan Scalley to get with both of those QBs after Kyle Whittingham took Michigan and say, hey, let's figure this out. Let's get both of you guys back and let's continue to have a plan. And I'm interested to see what the different wrinkles look like with Kevin McGivern. Devin Dampier hinted to us when we was talking with me and my colleagues from ESPN that we are going to see some packages with both of those QBs on the field and maybe in the backfield together. I think they view Bird Ficklin as a guy, and you saw it in how he played against Baylor and how he played against Colorado last year. He's an explosive athlete and tough for defenses, and so I think they're going to try and figure out some ways to get both of those guys involved. But yeah, I think Devin Dampier. The big thing with him is just, scheme change will be interesting, but like he just wasn't healthy last year and he couldn't run the way he wanted to. And I know he's eager to go out and kind of put together the full package of what he can do and what he showed, in the Mountain West.
I mean, is it possible that Dampier could be an NFL quarterback at his size?
It's a good question. I mean, I think we're gonna have that conversation about Noah Fifita as well. And right. I think the track record and I'll be interested to see. Obviously, we just kind of went through that this spring with Diego Pavia, and he did not get picked despite his pedigree. So I think that's an uphill thing, and NFL teams are still gonna sort of take a risk on the 6'4" guy who has a lesser resume, right? But yeah, I'd be excited to see. I think those are two guys that are definitely competing for Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year honors this year, and interested to see what another year of growth looks like from each of them.
Yeah, great point. And with the Dampier piece is really interesting because what you brought up with Ficklin, because who knows if you can keep Ficklin another year, even at whatever rate he's getting paid as a backup. That would be really tough. It's a great point.
But it's also kind of like OU a couple years ago, guys, where Dylan Gabriel's supposed to go pro. We're moving on to Jackson Arnold. Everybody's good with this. And then Dylan Gabriel's like, whoa, actually, I'm not going pro. I'm going to go transfer to Oregon and, try and improve my draft stock that way. And he did get drafted, right? So that is a little bit of overcoming the height stigma there. But, one of those situations where, okay, we kind of have a succession plan here. We got this figured out. And, it didn't quite go that way.
It was great to see you at Big 12 Media Days. I'm curious because you guys visited at ESPN with many of the same that we visited with. Like, what were some of the key takeaways or things that stood out to you from what happened at Big 12 Media Days a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, it's always interesting. We get the groups of players all come into our room at the same time. There's not a lot of one-on-one conversations with the players, and so you can kind of tell which groups are like the most connected, the tightest, like the strongest bonds, and all that stuff.
Good point.
And I thought second year in a row, I would say the Texas Tech players were the most entertaining to talk to, and those guys are really tight. Those guys finish each other's sentences, and I think you can see even with all the stuff that happened this summer, like, man, that's a tight group of guys with great leadership. Even though they're reloading in the portal, I think you're talking to those guys like really impressive what Joey McGuire has done there for culture standpoint. I would say the same thing with like the players from Arizona, and certainly talking with Brent Brennan. There's a extreme confidence from Brent Brennan. He told us he thinks Noah Fifita can win the Heisman this year. I think they feel really good that even with all the NFL defensive backs they have to replace, I think they feel like they've got star power at all three levels of the defense, and feel like they're in good shape here. And some of those programs are going to kind of come with it with a little more kind of quiet confidence, like Willie Fritz at Houston. But I mean, I certainly the Texas Tech stuff was still lingering, and we went to Big 12 Media Days, and I think generally speaking, I think coaches talking with them, I think they were relieved that was over. I think they were pretty pleased with how Brett Yormark handled that situation and the way that he took a stand. And I think everybody's sort of, pretty eager to move past that.
Talk with Max Olson here from ESPN. Max, what's your read on the Protect College Sports Act?
I don't know. I didn't go to school for that, right? It's been funny. Certainly it's a process that is, they've been chasing this for years and years and years. And now that they're kind of finally getting close, it kind of goes to show you how absurd the whole thing is, right? And from the standpoint of, okay, well, we're getting close here now. Let's come up with a bunch of new rules that we're going to agree to that are compromises that eventually we hope get this thing to the finish line. And clearly there's a lot of dealing going on right now to work out the details of this. You saw the latest stuff yesterday in terms of trying to set caps on conference expansion. And you're seeing, the pushback from the SEC and the Big Ten who fought so hard for this publicly. They've publicly asked for this so much, but when it comes time to try to do this in a way that's not totally on their terms, then they really struggle with that. And so I'm interested to see if they can get it to the floor and if they can really get this thing to the finish line. So clearly it's the best chance yet, right? After years and years of lobbying and all the money that's been wasted on this, is the best chance yet. We'll see what kind of maneuvering is still ahead, and if they can get enough concessions and buy-in to try to get there.
Max, do you think this thing finally does get passed? And if it doesn't, do you think it gets passed in the next Congress?
And that's on my field of expertise. I truly can't prognosticate on that stuff. I think that as much as there's this strong opposition right now from, certainly from the SEC and from their membership, and that's a little bit ominous to see how strong that's been. But clearly there's an interest in trying to get to the table and trying to figure out some ways to carve this in a way that is pleasing to those two leagues. So I think we still got a lot to play out here, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that I think some people probably look at this and feel like it's it's not looking good, and some are still hoping that they can figure out a way to make this nice for everybody. But yeah, I don't know. It feels like it's a very fluid situation at the moment.
Yeah, and I think to your point, this is further than any previous bill has gotten, which is good and shows progress, but not enough progress. And I mean, they're trying to placate now to the SEC and the Big Ten, and in doing so, you're probably hurting your position with other conferences. So you're just not going to make everybody happy. And at this point, it seems impossible to make the SEC happy.
Yeah, and I think as much as they put out statements about some of the things they take issue with, clearly, I think the potential of combining broadcasting rights is a huge problem to them, and even if they're not going to say it, totally on the record and all that is a
clearly
situation that they are, extremely opposed to, and they've, and I get it to some degree because they've built up their advantages that they have over time and through their TV deals. And so, why cede any of that for the, quote unquote, good of the sport, right? That's not how they see things. But yeah, guys, it's a wild time right now. And, you're clearly seeing that like at least with the NCAA rule changes, as unsatisfying as that is to everyone, at least there's like a step-by-step of like, okay, well, let's go into this committee and then this and this and this.
Right.
And right now it feels like we're in a process of just sort of making up new rules or quickly revising this stuff on the fly here to try to make it appetizing to people. And that's, I guess to some degree you got to say like, hey, be careful what you wish for, right? With this stuff. I mean, they've been lobbying for so long to try to get antitrust protection and try to get, some teeth here. And so, yeah, obviously, I think we all should have seen it coming. Obviously, there's going to be trade-offs to that.
Yeah, no doubt. Curious for, as we turn towards football, and you do such a good job in covering the portal, what transfer portal hauls stand out to you across college football? Like, what are the ones that as you look at that, like you like what they've done, you like the approach they took, you like the strategy they took, or you just like the players they added?
Well, I mean, I think one of the big stories of the year in this conference is going to be Oklahoma State. And to me, it's like, I understand how bad Oklahoma State was last year and going 1-11 and being just like totally unwatchable. But I think that's going to be one of the biggest flips in the country this year. And I think like, to even say like, oh, well, I think it'd be cool if they went like 6 or 7 games. Like I think the bar is higher than that. Like I really do think Oklahoma State has a chance to win 8, 9, 10 games this year. And that's because of the flip that they executed in January with their roster. And it's, there's few comparisons for it in terms of what Eric Morris and Raj Murdy and his staff did there. I mean, it's so super impressive to me. And I got to visit them this spring, but like, man, you bring 20 or so North Texas guys with you. You bring one of the best quarterbacks in the country and Drew Mestemaker and all of his playmakers with them. And, I think they were able to retain pretty well on defense. I think they added a ton of, FBS and Power 4 experience across the lineup. Like, I really do think, guys, it's going to be one of the stories of the season. And, I think that they got a chance to really – I think they know that their offensive system gives them a chance to be instantly successful. I'm not saying they're going to beat Oregon, but I think in terms of relative to the Big 12, I think they know they're coming in and looking at this league and saying, man, other than Texas Tech, who are we supposed to be afraid of? Like, we can come in and be successful right away. And so I think that one's impressive. I do a thing, we haven't put this out yet, but I do a piece where I look at who added the most FBS experience via the portal in the offseason. And Oklahoma State, by far, number one, like never seen anything like it. I think in terms of snaps added, Colorado is actually number 2. And I think Colorado is one that I think, it felt like there was a lack of buzz at media days around the Colorado situation after the year they had last year. But, and the Brennan Marion OC hire, I think gets some attention and gets some intrigue talking with their players. I think they're very excited about what they're doing offensively. But man, I think they did a pretty good job of going out and getting what they needed and really getting experienced players to go plug all their needs. Now, look, they do it every year. Like, Colorado's going to roll out a defense that's going to be pretty much all new guys, and that's the norm, right? And so how does that all gel together with a new DC? We'll see. But man, I like the the receiving core that they put together. Talking with their players, there's a ton of excitement about not just Danny Scudero, but DeAndre Moore and Cam Perry. I think that, certainly they're going to need to be able to run the ball this year, and I think Brennan Marion is going to find a way to do that. But just even up front, offensive line, defensive line, I think they did a really nice job of finding veterans. And so will Julian Lewis take a step? Will that all add up to being Colorado being, a contender in the Big 12 race again? I don't know, but I think that they actually did a pretty sneaky good job of going out and getting better.
Yeah, no. And the last thing on this, I'm curious for kind of your thoughts on this, because we've talked a lot about this as it pertains to West Virginia and UCF, but I think Oklahoma State's another good example of this. We've seen historically, like in Indiana here, where your best bet is to play the portal for multiple year guys, and like Indiana was year 2, right? And I mean that makes sense intuitively. And that's how West Virginia built. And even Rich Rod talked about that. UCF kind of built the opposite, where they just went after 1 year guys. I think the West Virginia, Oklahoma State approach is the right approach. The problem is, can you keep them, right? If these guys play well year 1, do you have enough money to keep them year 2?
Yeah, and I think West Virginia, certainly that was a massive flip. I believe they were number 1 last year for me in terms of snaps added. But part of that was just it's a brand new team for the most part. You're bringing a lot from Jack State. You're bringing a lot from all over the country. And, you lose a Cam Vaughn to Miami, you're going to have some of those types of moves that happen to just as guys, add value and put on tape what they can do. But, I think those are 2 jobs. I'm glad you mentioned it, because I think we're in this really interesting time right now where everybody has to kind of figure out what's the new model for us in terms of building a roster. And Oklahoma State doesn't want to do that every year. They don't want to bring in 70 transfers every year, right? Sometimes it's just the one year deal to get right. But, West Virginia went out this year and said, okay, you know what? What if we take the approach of we're going to actually do 105 scholarships, and we're going to take a crazy amount of high school players, and we're going to develop that. And I think you're seeing – UCF is, you're right, probably more 1 year guys, a lot of bounce back guys and stuff like that. But, part of it is you got to figure out, okay, what are we willing to pay for high school guys, and how much are we willing to pay them before they actually contribute to us? If the money's tight, if we're trying to be smart with our budget here, if we're trying to, live under the cap and do it the right way, you got to figure out, okay, where's our money spent? And our money's got to be on the field. And so it's got to be finding value with 3-star guys in high school, and then going out and finding, G5 and FCS guys that can come up and be, impactful in the Big 12. It's fascinating to watch. And I think there's going to be some of these, like you saw with Indiana. And I think you're totally right. There are going to be some of these that hit, and everyone's just like, man, how did they do that? And it's not just the quarterback, right? There's a lot that goes into that now. And there's some of these programs, and obviously Iowa State has the biggest rebuild of all this year, and that's going to take some time. But there's going to be some of them that are able to flip this stuff, and I think people will be pretty pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, and just the figuring out the right strategy for each program is so interesting. Max Olson does a fantastic job, one of the best in the business, covers college football in the transfer portal for ESPN. Max, as always, thank you for your time. Be well, man. Thank you.
Hey, my pleasure. Appreciate you.
Always fun visiting with our friend Max Olson from ESPN here on Big 12 Radio. It's Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. We'll recap what we heard from Devin Dampier and Morgan Scalley, plus Willie Fritz at Big 12 Media Days a couple of weeks ago. We'll hear what the coaches had to say and the big narrative surrounding those 2 programs next. This is Big 12 Today.
Pressure again off the edge. Wigman has Koziel. He's got room to run. Touchdown.
Great protection. Jump ball for his tight end. And he reeled it in. Wow. How about Tanner Koziel? Of Tanner Koziel on that play. Goes up in the middle of 3 defenders.
Oh, nice.
To the end zone. The tight end, Koziel. Touchdown, Houston.
True 6'7", he blinked, he didn't blink and said, absolutely he is. And when you've got that against a guy who, although isn't short at 6 foot, and Marquise Groves Killebrew, 6 foot 179, the red shirt junior transfer is no match for a guy 6'7", 257. You've got reach on him, you got size on him, and a quarterback that can put it right on the spot. That's outstanding football.
Looking for 6 instead of 3. Wigman, touchdown. His favorite target, Tanner Koziel.
That point to the flat, he's going to be the crosser versus man coverage. Gotta double team this guy everywhere on the field.
Wigman back in the end zone.
Just a couple of weeks away from the start of the college football season. I am Ari Temkin. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. Taman Turner producing and filling in today for James Westling, who will be back tomorrow. Great to have you with us today and every day here on your home for the Big 12. You know, over the last week plus, we played all 16 coach interviews that we did and conducted at Big 12 Media Days, plus interviews with players. You can hear many of those interviews across our Big 12 Today Power Hours at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and 3 o'clock Central Time today and every day right here on Big 12 Radio and Big 12 Studios. But throughout the week, we're going to play some of the audio and react to it as we talk big picture about each of these programs. And so now we're going to do that with Utah. And if we have some time, we'll dig into Houston as well. But I think one of my major takeaways overall from Big 12 Media Days in general was just how much better and more fun Morgan Scalley is to talk to than Kyle Whittingham. With all due respect to the great Kyle Whittingham, it doesn't help him win football games, but certainly from my perspective, Morgan Scalley, way more fun to talk to. We'll see if it does lead to winning more football games, but in 5 minutes, you could have, you know, just a treasure trove of good conversation that's legitimate and genuine with Morgan Scalley, more so than you can with Whittingham, but I digress. You know, one of the things, this is clip 3 that Morgan talked about, was Kevin McGivern and why he fit as the right OC for Utah.
Well, if you've studied anything that Kevin's done, he's worked with multiple personnel groups. He's been in a 21 personnel offense, a 10 personnel spread offense. Like, he's all about getting the ball to his playmakers. Very creative, very innovative. You know, last year, Utah State, you saw 3 running back field sets, inverted bone stuff. So he's very creative, understands that it's about the players, not the plays. And we've got some really good ones.
Yeah, and that was really just in relation to talking about what they have in their backfield. You know, we've heard a lot about Utah wanted to become more expansive in the passing game. It's really not something they've had, but that was certainly evident in our conversation with Morgan, and wanting to be more multiple. But obviously, you've got to lean into the run game. It's been a strength. It continues to be a strength based on personnel, and certainly it seems like McGivern's got some creative ways to do that. The big conversation around their offense, though, with Utah was on their offensive line, as they lose 2 guys to the NFL draft that were first-round picks. And here is what Morgan Scalley said about that.
So, Coach, on paper, you know, you have to replace 2 first-round NFL draft picks on the offensive line.
Is it just on paper? You don't have to do it on the field? Because if I can have those guys on the field, I'm good.
I mean, you know, when you lose Spencer Fano and Caleb Lomu, I mean, he's right. I mean, you those are guys that aren't necessarily replaceable. You know, you can replace them on paper, you can't replace them on the field. But I mean, look, you know, you're to your point about Kevin McGivern. I think they're going to work with this line, and with him being innovative and trying to spread this offense around, that sounds like a really, really like a best friend for Devin Dampier, Bird Ficklett, and Wayshawn Parker.
Yeah. Here is what he said, Morgan Scalley, when asked to expand on offensive line changes.
What fires me up every single year, the guys that have worked their tails off, that have been kind of waiting in the background to have their shot. And now you've got Zaraway Williams that's got his opportunity, right? You've got Ike Garcia, you've got Cedric Jefferson, these guys that we brought in from the transfer portal. They've got great coaching from Jordan Gross. The development during the offseason has been unbelievable. So at the end of the day, the game's played on the field, and we'll find out. But I'm very excited for these guys and the progress they've made.
All right, so there's Scalley talking about the offense. How about the defensive side? Scalley, obviously, throughout his career has been associated with the defensive side of the football. He's long been at Utah, and so he's familiar with the way in which Utah recruits and develops, and that was part of what we talked about. This is clip 8 with Morgan Scalley and talking about some of the secret sauce at Utah.
You have an understanding of what you're looking for in a recruit, what you're looking for in a specific position. And so you can recruit to that, and you have confidence in it because it's been successful. There are not many programs. I think there's 7 programs in college football that have had 3 or less coaching changes since I've been at the University of Utah.
Wow.
Wow.
The winning percentage of those teams is like 68%.
Go figure.
Anyone that's had more than that, their winning percentage is at 54%. So continuity, there's something to continuity,
Yeah.
there's something to being able to establish a culture and recruit to it.
All right. So that was maybe the most important thing in terms of just standing out to me overall. And that would be, that it's not a secret of the success for Utah, especially on the defensive side, that they have the right, they know the profile of the player they're looking for to recruit to, and then they have specific drills and development processes that play out in order to help those guys get there. It's why I have total faith in the defensive line for Utah, despite, maybe some personnel not being what we're used to seeing. Here's what Morgan Scalley said. This is clip 5 on what to expect for his defensive line.
Lance Holtzclaw came on the end of last year, had 2 sacks in the bowl game. He's going to be a force, the defensive end spot. Ethan Day, who's a transfer from North Texas. And then you got Paul Fitzgerald, who's a guy that didn't play for us much last year because of injury. He is so hungry to get back out there. Cash Dillon's a guy that was a local kid. There's, our defensive tackles. Again, it's that, okay, boys, here we go. Who's going to be that guy? Every year there's guys that fans don't necessarily know about that all of a sudden, bam, they had an unbelievable season. So I'm excited for those guys and what they're about to do.
Yeah. And Lance Holtzclaw, I think, was the big name, just not just for Scally mentioning, but, I think at media days in general, like there was tons of discussion around him. And again, like Utah proves year in and year out that like we may not know their personnel and their defensive line, but those guys are going to be really successful. And I buy it. I mean, we just talked about Steven Johnson from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram sort of ranking the best defensive lines in the Big 12, and he had Utah 14th. And I would say unquestionably that's the most egregious because there's a history here that suggests that they're going to be top 5 in the Big 12, regardless of the personnel. Now, maybe they don't need to be top 5 from a preseason ranking standpoint, but the history here suggests that it's going to be.
And I look at it this way too. It's not like, I know Morgan Scalley's a new coach, but he's not new at Utah. He knows what their identity is. He knows what he wants out of his defensive line. And I agree with you. 14th, even if you don't have him top 5, but 14th, I think out of the 16 teams in the Big 12, I just think that's egregious. I think you would, if you, I don't agree with this, but if you want to make the argument they're 9 or 10, to me, that's better than 14th. I just, the history of Morgan Scalley, that's not what his teams do. That's not what his defenses do.
Yeah, no, well said. Here's what Devin Dampier said on why he decided to stay at Utah.
He's seen the trust in me since the beginning. I mean, since New Mexico, he trusted me to become this player that is going to lead this team to where he wants to go and things like that. So for a head coach to continuously put that into my spirits, and even when he was a DC, he put that on me when I came in as, a quarterback. My visit was low key through Scally. So just for him to have that impact on me, I got done with surgery. He was there waiting for me. Like so much goes into that, how much of a person he is. And, I look into people more than, I look into the sports in some type of way. So for that to be there was a huge plus for me. And then, man, just the guys that I was able to have conversations with, like, man, are we staying? Are we sticking this out? And, when you have guys like Wayshawn and Jono and Lance that are here, guys like that I've had strong connections with, and we make that decision that, what's best for us is we want to all be in the league, and this is where we can all do it. Let's stick together.
I think that clip, that quote from Devin Dampier stands out more than anything of what we've heard. And I mean, if there's any reservations that you have about Morgan Scalley as a coach, they should probably, better served to be answered based on his answer there. And that, like, okay, so number one, you've got a defensive coordinator, a guy that has been serving as the defensive coordinator, who was the host for a incoming quarterback on their visit, right? It says a lot. It says a lot that Utah wanted him to be front and center, and says a lot that, that I think nobody was surprised internally that Morgan Scalley was officially taken over this year. I think it got to a point where they either needed Scalley to take over, or he was going to move on potentially to somewhere else to be in that same role. And I like over the course, it's clear now that they were transitioning many of these things to him. And even publicly, it's come out that, Utah basically told Kyle Whittingham that when he said he wanted to come back and here were what he needed, when they basically countered and said, like, Morgan Scalley's in charge, you could be the head coach, we're going to pay you this. They set him a bad deal because they wanted Morgan Scalley in charge. A big reason for that is because Scalley was the guy leading the charge for Devin Dampier and other guys as the defensive coordinator. This is a lot. And it says a lot that Dampier, despite losing his previous offensive coordinator and head coach, stuck with the guy that he viewed more so as his head coach and Scalley.
I mean, to be
Scalley more of his head coach.
I want to be respectful to Kyle Whittingham because of his legacy, but I look at it like this. Utah wanted Scalley. Devin Dampier wanted Scalley. Bird Ficklin wanted Scalley. Wayshawn Parker wanted Scalley. No, I know Whittingham took guys with him. Don't get me wrong. But the fact that you have the backing of your quarterback, your university, your running back, I think that Morgan Scalley carries a lot of weight. And no disrespect to Kyle Whittingham, but I think Utah's in good hands. I don't think Utah has back Scalley the way they did if they truly don't believe in him.
Yeah, no, I think you're totally right. And not only that, but if the team didn't.
Right. Yeah. If the players that they had didn't believe in Scalley, Utah wouldn't have wanted them as their head coach. They either would have kept Whittingham or had Scalley leave. And they didn't want that. Scalley was their number one guy. And they got him. The players bought into it. And I think Utah's in good hands.
Yeah. No, I think that's obvious. I think it's very obvious that Utah's in great hands because Scalley from a personality standpoint, but Scalley and how he's recruited. And that's where, I think from the outside looking in, it's like, oh, how is Scalley going to be? And I think inside it's totally different. They have there's no questions there. Is Utah going to win the Big 12 this year? I don't know, but that doesn't speak to how good of a coach Morgan Scalley is or isn't. I think they're pretty confident that they're going to be really good this year. They're probably going to compete for a Big 12 championship, but if they don't get there, I think they'll be in better position heading into next season, year 2, for Scalley to do that.
It's funny with Utah, asking, are they going to win the Big 12 this year? The answer you just said, it's correct. We don't know, but it's a weird thing is if they did, I don't think any of us would be surprised.
No, I mean, I think people would be more surprised just because Scalley is kind of an unknown. But again, I think internally he's not. They know what they're getting in him.
Right.
Even if we don't. And I think visiting with him, we got a better sense of it. Not just visiting with him, but again, the clip there from Devin Dampier. Dampier is under no need to give us the answer that he gave us, right? I mean, it was a better fit here. No, we talked about his relationship with Morgan Scalley and how that started from day one when he was on his visit. And, that there was a group of players, especially on offense, that was connected in a way that felt like we're not leaving. We're not going anywhere. We got to stay here and see this thing through, especially on offense. This is a lot about Dampier's leadership. It says a lot about Scalley's leadership. I think they're a lot more confident in Salt Lake about this football program under Scalley than most people are nationally because of the unknown factor of Scalley. He's a lot less of an unknown to Utah.
Yeah.
More unknown to everybody else.
He's been there for decades. Utah knows him best.
Yeah, well said. Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. Jason Shearer, our buddy from Wildcat Authority, joins us next. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio.
Short. This is a defense that came in top 5 in the country in sacks. Bray gets another touch, breaks another tackle, cuts it back, and finally is going to. For this Utah offense, I think he has done a tremendous job coming over from New Mexico.
Yeah, coming in from the Lobos. There goes Parker. Wayshawn shoving away to the end zone.
Plus. It wasn't hurdles, it was like steeplechase. Parker for 12 now. In stride. Flowing wet football. Rodgers carries, and it's a first down. Ute.
Big 12 Radio, Big 12 Today, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. We are presented by Modelo. Excited to be joined right now by our buddy Jason Scheer from Wildcat Authority. Jason, how are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, appreciate your time. And, when news trickled out during Big 12 Media Days about the Monster deal, I think there was a lot of negative reaction to it, and there was probably a lot of unknowns, but I appreciate your reference at that point in time to talk about a specific within the deal that is actually a really good thing, and that is that the deal requires Monster to include Big 12 assets in its marketing in more than 100 countries where it advertises. Overall, as somebody that covers, a school within this conference, but covers the conference at large, Jason, what do you make of the Monster deal?
Yeah, I mean, when you take a look at it overall, I get the criticism. The number seems small, but I think part of it, we don't know the full in and outs of the deal. I mean, for all we know, each Big 12 school is getting their own branded Monster Energy drink or something like that. And so I'm a little hesitant to go full in on the criticism, but I do think there's value in getting the Big 12 name out there as much as possible. And I think that, based off what Monster said or the contract said with, how much money they're putting in and all that, it seems doubtful that all the deal is they're shoving a patch on a jersey and that's the deal. I mean, there's going to be a lot more to it. What that is, I don't know. But I'm confident in saying that Brett Yormark's not just going to sign a deal where it's like, here's a patch, let's all move on. There's going to be more to it on both sides.
Yeah. I mean, what do you make overall of what Brett Yormark is doing? Obviously, in some ways he's come under fire, but what's your observation about Brett Yormark?
I like Yormark. I mean, I think he's aggressive and he's always trying to look to advance the conference. So, the reality is when you look at college football in the last few days, you've got the SEC talking about possibly, being on their own and things like that. And it's Yormark's job to position the Big 12 as strong as it can for whatever's next in college athletics. And I think that so far he's shown an understanding of what that looks like, whether it's fighting for spots in the college football playoff or advertising or whatever it may be. You need someone who's a forward thinker. And, I come from Arizona being in the Pac-12 where we know, where leadership got the Pac-12 overall. So I think Yormark is refreshing compared to the previous leadership that maybe I'm used to, or, Utah fans, Colorado, etc. But you take a look at it and I still trust Yormark. I don't think he's done anything to take that trust away.
Yeah, well said. Jason, looking at Arizona specifically, it's a weird spot because it feels like they're really underrated within this conference, given what they did last year and given what they return. Where do you have them preseason in this conference?
Yeah, when I take a look at it, I think Texas Tech and BYU are the top two teams. I think that's pretty clear. Texas Tech, despite the quarterback situation, is super talented, brought in a ton of talent. BYU returns talent, but I have Arizona right there at number 3. I think that Arizona and Houston for me are 3 and 4, whatever order you want. But you take a look at Arizona, there's certainly questions, but you return, in my opinion, the best quarterback in the Big 12. You return most of your O-line. The offensive side of the ball is good. The defensive side of the ball, you return a lot of guys. And sure, again, there's questions like there is with any team, but at the positions you need to be strong at in order to succeed in college football, I think Arizona does well.
The one thing that I keep talking about, I know you do too, and it's not just the Noah Fifita Heisman campaign, but more of who the dude is. And it's funny because people Noah Fifita is the type of quarterback that people say they want in college sports, right? There's a lot of complaining about, not facing adversity and leaving at the first sign of adversity. I mean, here's a guy that twice stuck it out at Arizona despite adversity. First when his coach left, and then the second time when he had a bad year with Brent Brennan, but he stuck it out and has come out the other side a better player for it. There's so much of Noah Fifita that should be celebrated, and yet he's just kind of an afterthought when it comes to the Heisman race right now.
Yeah, I mean, Brent Brennan said it was even to the local media, he said, you guys don't talk about Noah enough. It's we look at college football and we try to find what's wrong with it and solutions to fix it. And guys like Noah Fifita are everything that's right with it. Could have gone somewhere else, like you mentioned, did it, stayed loyal, has given up NIL money to make the team better. Could easily walk into Brent Brennan's office and demanded more money, and he did it. And The team loves him. Great, leader off the field and just a good player. Like it's just he's everything that's right with college football. And I don't think he's going to win the Heisman because I think at the end of the day, it's Arizona probably won't be 11-1 or whatever it may be, but the guy deserves more attention. And when we're covering college football and how to fix it and eligibility and NIL and all that, here's this guy right in front of us that's just doing everything right and makes college football look great.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible. What do you think is the most underrated positional group for Arizona this year heading into the season?
It's probably the D line. The defensive line, they didn't really lose anyone. Last year, Trey Smith got injured. You never want to see a guy get injured, but it helps Arizona because he got another year of eligibility and he's back. And it's probably the deepest position, on the defensive side of the ball. They brought in, they brought in multiple transfers, but most of all, they returned guys. They returned Trey Smith and Dominic Lalesio and Maze Pesci and, Leroy Palu. And then they added guys, and it's the deepest the defensive line has been in years. The coaching staff is really confident in it. There's no huge, dominant name, but there's a bunch of guys who I think are going to have strong seasons.
Yeah. I completely agree with you there. I'm curious for your thoughts on the Protect College Sports Act.
And how so? It's such a loaded topic.
What's your take on it?
It's a situation where I get it, right? I get that something needs to be done. It's just,
but it ain't this.
Yeah. It's going to be hard to make everyone happy, right? Like, and so that's what they're trying to figure out is the people that are unhappy, how are we going to make them as less unhappy as possible? But it's just it's everyone. You're still in a phase where everyone's kind of looking out for themselves, and I'm not sure how to get past that phase. But it just seems like something's missing, right? Like it's not the solution that everyone's looking for. And even if it's signed and passes, which I'm still skeptical of, there's going to be people that are kind of looking for the next step and the next way of fixing college athletics.
Jason, we've all agreed that not everybody's going to be happy. What would make Jason Scheer happy?
Man, it just, to me, it's college football and college athletics have become about the wrong thing. And I completely get NIL. I get it. I get the whole, paying players and all that. There's just got to be a way where every conversation surrounding college athletics now is about money. And it used to be about pageantry in your school and things like that. And now it's, hey, do we have enough money to put together a college football roster? Do we have, and it's like, man, it's still, to me, it's still crazy to hear. Like, oh yeah, this quarterback's going to cost $5 million. Like there's got to be a way, and I don't know if college athletics will ever be an even playing field. Like I don't expect a mid-major to be on a same playing field as a high major, or whatever. But it feels like the basis of the sport is kind of getting away from us. Yeah. And so I don't know how to get it back. I wish I did. I wish I had those answers. But I kind of just miss what college athletics used to be, I guess.
Kids would say we've lost the plot, I think is the best way to put it. Yeah. Taman? No, Taman.
I'm back. Sorry.
All right, cool. You told me you had a question. I was expecting you to ask a question there.
No, sorry. We're good. Hey, so Jason, Noah Fifita, I know we talked about him a little bit, and we talked about him potentially being, a Heisman, even though we don't think he's going to win it. What do you think is his future post Arizona?
When you look at him, he's obviously the first thing that stands out when you talk about professional future is his size. I mean, he really is a 5'8" quarterback. It's tough. It's tough for him to succeed at the next level. But I will say this, I'm not the one to doubt him, right? It's a lot of people have doubted him, and he continues to succeed. I don't think he gets drafted. I do think he is the type of guy where it's like, look, if you need another quarterback on your roster, you could do much worse than Noah Fifita, right? And I don't really, I know his size is going to hold him back and all that, I don't expect him to have some long NFL career, but I do expect him to have success in whatever it is that he does based off the kind of person he is, his family, and all that. But again, like, he's been doubted so much, and he continues to prove people wrong that I'm not going to be the one to doubt his ability to play at the next level.
Yeah, and nor should it diminish his career either. You know, let's say he doesn't have much of an NFL career, which I think is most likely. That doesn't mean we shouldn't celebrate and talk about just how amazing his career's been and how much he's meant to the city of Tucson and sticking through everything and just what he does publicly and for kids. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's going to have success. He does flag football and coaches kids. I could see coaching in his future easily. His dad's a coach. His uncles are coaches at the high school level. So I wouldn't be surprised if he got into coaching. And if he does that, he's going to be great at it.
Yeah. Although Brennan maintains he won't. It's just hard to think that he's not perfectly suited for that. One basketball question before we get you out. How good do you think this team's going to be next year?
Yeah, I think they're going to be really good. The biggest question right now is the power forward spot. It's frustrating because they're taking their time with it. They don't really have a starting power forward right now. They're going to get one. It's just a matter of when that happens. Is the 5-for-5 rule going to be what lends Arizona power forward? Is there an international guy? There's some stuff they're waiting for, and they're significantly more patient than the fan base. But you take a look at it. Mo Krivas is going to be one of the best centers in all of college basketball. Ivan Karchenkov returns. He's going to be great. And then Caleb Holt, the freshman. There's people around the program that have said this guy's as good as any freshman that's come through the program in a long time. And he's going to challenge for the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. He's been that good in workouts and everything like that. So, they're going to be good. It's just they got to figure out the power forward situation and what that's going to look like for the season.
Jason Scheer, Wildcat Authority. Jason, appreciate your time as always, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Always fun to visit with our buddy Jason Scheer from Wildcat Authority. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Still looking downfield, and it's intercepted. Intercepted. Trade Stukes, first of all, made a great play to pick that one off.
Be successful. Pick up the blitz. Salter's in trouble. The game is really moving too fast for him right now. Stoops again comes through to get him on a loss of 2.
He's got time. His pass to the sideline is intercepted. Traden Stukes with a purloined pigskin. Robertson has to check it down. And again, Arizona is there to crunch it. Traden Stukes leads the defense. Johnson is hit, and he is dropped. Traden Stukes was shot out of a cannon.
He's ready to pressure because the safety got him capped. And once he runs through the back and gets to Avery Johnson.
Sawyer Robertson looking for the lead. Intercepted instead. Traden Stukes on his senior day.
Big 12 Radio. This is Big 12 Today. Heard on Tune In, watched on Big 12 Studios. So great to have you with us today and every day here on your home for the Big 12. Just some interesting news and notes around the Big 12. One that we haven't yet talked about, which is that Jamie Pollard, the endowed Cyclones athletic director, has been in that spot for 22 years. He officially announced that he is going to be stepping down. That came while we were gone on break. And look, I mean, Jamie Pollard's been a pioneer for Iowa State. He's been hugely influential and has been extremely successful. And I think it's obvious that based on what we've heard from him over the last couple of months, years, that maybe college athletics has gotten to a point that he just prefer to step aside from. And I think that's the case with lots of these guys. And it shouldn't be a secret with Pollard. Hopefully there's nothing else there beyond that, which could be obvious, but we'll be really interested to see what direction they go. You know, I think Iowa State has a very good sense of who it is and the type of people they need to hire in those positions. And so I'm confident they'll hire the right guy. But certainly a great steward and ambassador for the conference. Jamie Pollard will be stepping aside after this season.
Yeah, I mean, and look, I strongly believe that Iowa State feels that they're in a good position, particularly on the football side with Jimmy Rogers. I do feel like there might be a question for TJ Otzelberger. I know he signed that contract extension. So I believe they believe he's in a good spot, but with
Right.
Pollard leaving, you know, what does that future entail for somebody as successful as Otzelberger? That we'll have to wait and see. But like you said, the landscape has changed, and now we'll see where Iowa State goes from here.
Yeah, I also, as it relates to Iowa State, found this interesting. Ben Hutchins, who covers Iowa State for the Quad City Times, found an article written by Audrey Snyder, who covers Penn State football, and basically says she's got a quote from Matt Campbell. There were two major emotions talking about when he got the job. One, my initial assumption was I was going to Penn State and they were going to name Mouse offensive coordinator Taylor Mauser as the head football coach. My initial assumption was, how do I help him transition and how do I make sure our kids are taken care of? I felt good that this was going to be the plan. Really interesting. So Campbell opening up saying that he thought and felt that Iowa State would name offensive coordinator Taylor Mauser as the head coach after he left. But they immediately moved to hire Jimmy Rogers. And so that surprised Matt Campbell. It's surprising because the move almost appeared to be concurrent. So, I don't know that they ever thought about Taylor Mauser or what, but it basically happened at the same time. In fact, it almost seemed like Rogers was hired before even Campbell left.
Right.
That's how quick it was.
Right. Felt like a coach in waiting, even though he wasn't a coach in waiting.
Yeah,
They knew he was their guy.
I'd be curious if Pollard ever at any point thought about hiring Mauser, or if it's just always going to be a guy like Rogers. Because look, if you're a good AD, if you're worth your weight in salt, then I think like having a short list, you have to have, regardless of how solidified each one of your coaching spots is. You've got to know, like, if I lose TJ Otzelberger tomorrow, who am I going to hire? Who are the three guys I want to talk to? And I think that was absolutely the case in Pollard, that he knew exactly who he wanted to hire. And it may have been different than who Matt Campbell anticipated hiring. It almost seems like the clean break from Campbell and his group was probably the right approach there. And that's maybe why they didn't even think about it, or it probably had nothing to do with anything. And it was just, this was the guy that they felt was best suited to take over the program.
Yeah, right.
All right. We had the Texas High School Coaches Association meetings going on this week as well. And there's some really interesting stuff that's come out of that, including Sark kissing the ring.
Hey, first and foremost, Joey and I are good. We're sitting next to each other, y'all. So we're all good up here, okay?
So
can I respond to that?
Yeah.
As a Texas fan, obviously Sark and McGuire, I'm sure they have a good relationship personally. I know Sark has been, throwing the flames, throwing the stones for Texas and Tech to play. Look, they were in the same conference for many years, and obviously Tech has improved. Texas wasn't good for a long time. Obviously, they've improved. I really hope this game gets on the schedule. Like, I just think it'll be fine. We've been talking about all the last 2 days about improving college football, right? And we know for a fact that, let's take the legislation, the NIL, let's take all that out of it. But one thing that we can improve on and that we love is a rivalry. Let's have this game be played. Texas Tech, I don't care where it's played at. At the end of the day, somebody's going to be really happy, somebody's going to be really mad, and bragging rights are on the table. I'm just speaking strictly from a fan perspective. Take work and everything out of it. Who would not want that?
No, I mean, you're totally right. I mean, it also at the same time seems extremely unlikely. I mean, I guess I'd put it like a 0.01%, so I'll give it some potential opportunity. But I mean, in a world in which we're seeing LSU and many SEC programs cancel future home and homes with Big 12 schools, I mean, and it's almost as if Texas wanted to get away from Texas Tech as a reason for going to the SEC. It wasn't entirely the reason, but I think it's certainly played a reason in it. I mean, to your point, like the game would be amazing. I think it's extremely unlikely to happen. And look, in the case of Sark, right, Joey McGuire's history at Cedar Hill, like he still runs the Texas High School Coaches Association. Now, Sark could still recruit the state of Texas without Joey McGuire's hand, right? Like he doesn't need to be good friends with Joey McGuire in order to recruit Texas, but it helps. And I certainly think in this case, that's what Sark is doing here. I think they're legitimate friends. I mean, McGuire told us that he got a text from Sark dealing with the Sorsby stuff, just about how there's no manual for all of this stuff. But remember, like, Joey runs the Texas High School Coaches Association. I mean, his history there as a member and, of course, as a productive and successful coach, and just the personality that he has and how genuine and honest he is. I mean, that's very much a kiss the ring thing.
No lies detected.
The other thing I thought was kind of interesting. So Joey McGuire at the Texas High School Coaches Association meetings was asked about Will Hammond. Here's what he said.
Yeah, I got some really good news Wednesday. So we were at football school and I was meeting with my trainer because we'd been on a break. And so we were standing out there and we were just talking about different guys. And so Bryce Moloch, our starting corner, he didn't go through spring football. We had his shoulder cleaned up. And so he's like, hey, he's going to be released. He's released today. Quentin Joyner's going to be released today. A couple of our other shoulder guys will be released Thursday. And he's going through and he said, Will's not going to have to go back to Dr. Cooper. Dr. Cooper's released him to progress him to get ready for week 1. And so I was fired up because I thought that he was going to have to go back. 9 months is actually August 21st. And I think if it was a different position, we would probably, that he would want to see him. But once the quarterback doesn't get in practice anyway, and so you're going to be able to do some different things with him to get him ready. And so that was good news.
Yeah, I mean, and look, this is no different from what we heard from McGuire at Big 12 Media Days, right? I mean, there was a lot of talk about him being available week 1. It feels like the right move is to have him ready for week 3, but that it's trending more of week 1, and I get that. That makes a ton of sense to me because again, like, if you're asking him to play for the first time in the season against Houston to open up Big 12 play, that's a heavy ask as opposed to, hey, you've played for a couple of games, you're more in rhythm, get ready for week 3, by playing in week 1 and 2.
That Houston line coming for that knee.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and not only that, but like, you're trying to play yourself back into shape, and right. So like, it's one thing to be available to play week 3. It's another thing is like how effective you're going to be by the time you're back week 3. I think that's the big thing. And so, I think like it just makes sense that it's available for week 3, but at the same time, like if he can be available for week 1, now you're way better off heading into week 3 with that.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Here is what Will Hammond has been saying.
How do you make sure with now you being the starter for sure, not rushing back to be ready for week 1, knowing the expectation is we're going to have a long season, but balancing like I'm ready for sure for week 1 and not rushing back for week 1.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think at the end of the day, like it's all up to the training staff to see how they're viewing me. But my mentality is always going to be to play in every single game. regardless of the competition. And so, like, my body's prepared for week 1 at this point, and we haven't even started camp yet. So now it's just like, all right, hone in on little details and make sure I'm feeling really good going into that game. And then also the longevity aspect of like, okay, do I want to wear a brace? How do I want to approach a third and fourth quarter of a game? Things like that, because we want to go play in 16 games this year. So I think that's a great question, and I just have to kind of keep in mind and really rely on the training staff, and they've got all the wisdom in the world. So I'm gonna listen to them at the end of the day.
I think when it comes to Hammond, one of the important things here is, like, it's not all or nothing. And especially with the way the season starts, like, you know, for Texas Tech's offense to be at its best, they've got to have a running element from Hammond. I believe that. And it was an element that they did not have last year for Behren Morton. But we don't necessarily need to see that the first couple of weeks of the season. I think, like, as he's coming back from the ACL, the biggest thing is, can you plant and drive through on that foot? Can you throw the ball effectively? And to throw the ball effectively, you need to be able to plant and drive through that foot. Well, how effective is that? That's what you can find out the first couple of weeks, right? I mean, we know he has the ability to run, and he's going to at some point need to show that on film. But do we have to see that the first 2 weeks of the season? No, probably not. I think more you want to gauge where he's at, you know, physically, from a standpoint of throwing the ball and the legs, the power generation he needs from his legs and knees.
And I think the answer that Will Hammond just gave is really important. He talked about what the trainers feel will be best. The trainers, the coaching staff, they might not have him run because, to your point, he doesn't really have to the first couple of weeks. Right. But man, once they let that cannon loose, man, along with he brings an extra element to the quarterback, to that position. You have Cameron Dickey, Jacoby Williams, you have Will Hammond. That run game can be really scary, but because I know we keep talking about that Houston game, but I don't think that Will Hammond has to unleash his legs in that game for them to get the win. But, middle of the season, later in the season, once he unleashes, you add an element to that Tech offense that will be really, really scary.
Yeah, I mean, the Tech offense was very explosive last season based on stats, but when push came to shove, having a statue quarterback is what destroyed Texas Tech. Right? I mean, like most quarterbacks, Behren Morton was not very good against the rush, but it was more so because of his inability to escape, being more of a statue. Well, that's the added element that Sorsby was going to bring to the table. It's the added element that Will Hammond can bring to the table. Sorsby has shown himself to be a more mobile quarterback than Hammond, and just more starts and more opportunities. But we'll see how much a part of his game that's going to be. But at the end of the day, for like big picture for Texas Tech, they need him to be not just an effective quarterback, but effective scrambling as well. Because again, you're going to play teams in the college football playoff that are going to be able to blitz you with NFL type defensive lines. And, if you have a quarterback that can escape that and make plays on the run, you stand a much better chance to be able to win that football game.
I share the exact same sentiment. I think that Texas Tech's approach can be very, they don't have to go all in right away. They have a schedule that favors them. Yeah, they have a running game that's really, really good. And now they have a mobile quarterback that's an aspect of the game they didn't have last year, but they don't have to express it right away.
All right, that is Taman Turner's done a great job the last couple of days producing and filling in for James Westling, who will be back tomorrow. I am Ari Temkin. Thanks, of course, to our great producer, Anthony Smith with Big 12 Studios. Big 12 today has been brought to you by the Full-Time Fan, by Modelo. The offseason is almost officially over and the regular season is upon us. It's time to get that Modelo stocked in your fridge, ready for the football season. All right. I'll be enjoying some Modelo's tonight at the Rangers ballpark for the White Sox and Rangers. Go White Sox. Hopefully they get another win tonight against the Rangers. But for you and your Rangers, Taman, have fun. Enjoy yourselves. I'll be drinking Modelo's at the ballpark.
I'll send you my Modelo pick through the text when we get the win tonight.
Nice. Please do. We're back tomorrow, but for now, we're out. Peace.